Man, there's a lot there. Isaac, do you want to go first? You look like your brain's so big. Just go for it, dude.
I don't know. Well, it's not as strategic as you think. It's not like, well, if we move this Japanese airsofter here, we'll make a 10 million view video that will move the needle this far.
You're listening to the Art and War podcast with your hosts, Mitch and Nathan. Mitch is a former airborne infantry squad leader who now spends most of his time coaching soccer. Nathan is a professional illustrator and an avid shooter with a couple of years of Canadian military experience. Together, they run the Seaburn art page. Enjoy the show.
I actually was going to make the opposite joke. I was going to say, welcome to the Grand Thumb podcast that he doesn't have to actually do any of the organizational work on because
I love it.
He's a genius.
Is your internet all good though? I don't want it to like.
Yeah, fucking great white neighbor to the north just fucking up internet.
Ugh. Well, we're a very professional podcast here, and we have very professional equipment, opinions, thoughts. But yeah, today we're joined because we're getting better now. So we're getting better with introducing our guests in the beginning as opposed to like 20 minutes down the road. That's something that we didn't do in the beginning. So
I don't like that.
You don't like it? You're not a fan?
I'm just kidding. You're good.
Are you going to remember to do ad reads this time?
Ooh.
You know?
Oh yeah. Did we forget with you?
We did.
I think so.
We did with him, and then we had to put it in the beginning.
Use Grand Thumb's link for Brownells. Thank you.
Yes. Brownells are a big 2A supporter.
Well, we'll do our ad read now. AWS, Advanced Warfighting Solutions. Check out their SMU belt. Use code ARTandWAR10. We don't get a kickback. You just save money, get cool gear. And Applied Gear, use code ARTandWAR5. They make everyday carry belts. We don't get kickback. You get cool gear and save money. Good people over there. That's our ad read. There we go. So now we're all done.
Very
now
good people.
We're going.
Now we can do shitpost. Fantastic.
I don't know if I finished introducing everybody, but we got Mike Jones, aka Garand Thumb, the man with some thumbs who does stuff and things on YouTube. And then we have Isaac Botkin, a better person than all of us combined, who
genuinely, measurably
does stuff and things and engineering stuff over at Trex Arms. This episode only came to be because Mike had the idea last episode. He was like, I want to do an episode with Isaac. And we're like, well,
hell yeah.
I'm not going to say no to that. We never had reoccurring guests. So congratulations to you folks, reoccurring guests. Thank you very much.
Hey.
2 weeks in a row, I think, Mike. So I want to say, as someone who stayed up pretty late last night editing my own podcast, don't have your own podcast. Just be on this podcast every week with the people that you want to talk to, and let these guys do the work. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I have a bandwidth, and I've exceeded it. So
yeah, we have even then just outsourced the work because the two of us are far too unable to do it. Yeah, thank you, BR. If you can hear this,
so you edit your own podcast though?
I do, generally speaking. The 20-minuters I do, and then we've got one coming up, hopefully very soon, that's an interview with someone else. And it was very much like this podcast. We got off track and started talking about stuff that he didn't want publicly in the wild. So I was just going over that. Yeah.
Oh, that's
it'll make more sense once it drops. But political candidate who is
nice.
Going on to be in office. And we were just talking about different Republican Party shenanigans and Republican Party establishment folks. And he was like, that's an off-the-record thing. And I was like, absolutely. And then we talked for 15 minutes.
How wonderful.
It's great when you can get into those personal conversations, though. And I think that's something that we strive for. And sometimes it ends up biting us in the ass because a lot of stuff will just have random gaps in it. But, you know, it's a very selfish endeavor, this podcast, I think. We just get to talk with people about things. And maybe people get to hear it. Maybe they don't.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Mike, do you edit your own videos or do you have somebody for that like we have somebody for this?
I used to edit all my own videos. And
oh, my God.
Yeah, it was not good. It was way too much. So when I hired my current camera guy, Micah Mayfield, on Instagram, he was like, he's like, I could edit, I'm like, no, that's my thing. I like the creative process, I don't want to outsource it. But essentially it came down to like I was super behind on everything. And he was like, listen, I can edit a Grantham video as well as you can edit a Grantham video, because I am actually an editor. Like, I can easily replicate your style. And I was like, freaking bet, dude, you can't do what I do. And so I was like, hey, we'll have a competition. Like, we'll both edit the same video, see who comes out better. And like within 20 minutes, he sent an edited video to me in the time it would take me to do 8 hours. And it was like so far and above better than anything I could ever have done. I was like, well, shit, looks like I'm out of a job. So that's how I got myself fired from being editor.
Yeah. Nice.
It was gorgeous.
We were going to teach ourselves to edit when we were starting this. And then we were like, we already have, because with the way that we separate work, we already agreed not to take on any more responsibilities because it just takes so much time, and to learn how to do it, I can only imagine how long a video takes, but just doing audio, I felt like would have been too much for us. So it's kind of amazing that you are able to do what you do over at Trex, and you also edit your own podcast. I think that's
it's in some ways it's easy and a little bit therapeutic because I have a background in editing. I feel a lot more flexibility to like record a 30-minute podcast, and then I can, if I real quick after I record it, sit down and be like, oh, that middle part was just no good, and I just delete that without listening to it, and then I just skim through and take out a couple of gaps and then EQ it and then upload it. So it's not super involved, but it is nice to, if I recorded it and then gave it to somebody with notes and then they had to listen to it and then they had to decide whether or not that middle part was any good. Like, I feel like it's efficient to do that, relatively speaking. And I'm comfortable with the software. So it's like, it's almost easier for me to do it in the software than it is to write notes. So yeah. But this week has been pretty content heavy, because I did a Monday 20-minute podcast. Then I did an hour live stream, which, by the way, is boring content. But the video guys had 2 cameras and the laptop screen, and they were doing cool over the shoulder shots of equipment and split screen stuff. And it was, one of the most technically impressive live streams I've seen. And then now we're talking for 3 hours. So this is a pretty content heavy week for me.
Yeah. Was that the one
that
with
was
the
radio
radios,
live stream,
the SDRs and all?
So I'm glad that we've been talking kind of about radios and layout nav, because that is very closely tied to the kind of the topic that we're getting into, and that's kind of gun culture, how it's evolving, where we've come from, where we're going, and how we get there. And I think kind of starting in the middle present time where we're at, radios, comms in general, land nav, and bushcraft are kind of that 0.5 step to that next 0.0 of gun culture.
I agree.
I know how we talked last time with you, Mike, about how you kind of got into guns. I don't know if we really talked with how you kind of got involved with like guns and tactics as much, Isaac. When was your kind of like introduction? I know you mentioned briefly you're kind of always around firearms and stuff, but to go from where it sounds like you started to where you're at, how did that come to be? What did that transition look like?
Like many things, I arrived at a lot of these conclusions by going backwards. So I was kind of thinking through what capabilities should we have, and then worked backwards from there to figure out what some of the skills or tool sets were. Unfortunately, like I talked about in the last podcast, not to beat a dead horse, but my dad had been doing video production when I was a kid, and doing video production for people like Gun Owners of America. So not only had I been around guns, but I'd been around people who were talking about guns as a cultural right and a necessity and things like that. So I already had all these bits and pieces and shelves in my brain. So then as I just was in the world and studied military history and traveled and things, I sort of worked backwards from, well, what would make somebody effective and dangerous and capable in certain situations, and be like, oh, well, it would be gear plus capability plus training plus understanding, et cetera, et cetera. It would be a whole bunch of stuff. It would be not just you have a cool gun, but you have an understanding of a weapon system and ammunition for it, and a way to carry it and a way to deploy it. And, just kind of worked backwards from your ideal situation or your ideal capability list. So yeah, and I am a baby student in most of these areas. But yeah, I kind of got there backwards, like I get to a lot of places.
This is why I like Isaac so much.
Yeah.
That is perfect though. I mean, that's what you want to see, right? That's why I like what you do, Isaac, is you approach it from such a different perspective compared to a lot of the classically trained military guys out there, and it's refreshing. It's good to see it in a different way, and it all points back to kind of this general idea that you guys are pushing over at Trex Arms, that I'm pushing, that many other people are pushing, which is that military, non-military, law enforcement, non-law enforcement, it doesn't matter. It's that we all have this fundamental right to be prepared as not just citizens, but just human beings, right? These natural intrinsic rights. And so, love it, man.
Mike, you said you were there when kind of Lucas and the T-Rex guys were switching kind of from wearing multicam to, the skinny jeans and the jacket and tight pants type culture.
It's all about culture, right? And it's probably one of the best things I can think of as far as like defining the look, right? You gotta have a look with any. I mean, we're getting into kind of branding and that type of thing, but Lucas was really good. The team over there was really good at what they did and how they handled it, and the direction that they wanted to take Trex Arms. And Lucas, and I'm not sure. I'm sure Isaac, you were pretty involved as well. You guys knew
Not
what you were doing.
particularly. Like
Really?
I was very, I was very out of it for some of the most important branding type stuff. That was that train was already rolling by the time I jumped on.
That's fair, man. Yeah, no, Lucas was really specific about what he wanted and how he wanted to go about it, and making it, a non-military endeavor, a civilian endeavor, which was really cool because at the time, when this was occurring, like what, 2017, 2016, I think, when I was first talking to him, it was definitely a military heavy community, and that whole civilian presence wasn't really there, or maybe it was there, but it was more spat upon. So I really like that it kind of flip-flopped a little bit, right? We have now, it's just, this is a natural right for citizens. Like, as a citizen, you don't have to have been into the military to have these skills or have this equipment. It's just something that you should have. And he was very particular about the way he went about that and how he branded himself and everything, right? And it was smart. It was just really smart because everything, like we've talked about, is cultural, right? How do people perceive it? I call it social engineering, right? How are people thinking about this idea, because we've been presenting it in a different way. And Trex Arms crew, I mean, you guys crush it at that. You guys are really good. Just gotta say it.
Oh,
Your website is Chef's Kiss.
I love the way that our website is coming together. I think that we have this beautiful mix of my brother Noah doing the code, and he can do it at enough of a level. And he has other programmers now, but he can do it at enough of a level that when Lucas or Drew are coming up with stuff, we can do it.
That's your brother doing the code for that website?
Oh, yeah.
So when you guys are born, is it like you're assigned a role? You're like, Lucas is the warrior class, Isaac is the mage.
No, because everybody has switched jobs
Really?
a couple of times at least. So I was definitely the artist filmmaker guy, and now I'm an engineer, which, depending on how you look at it, is opposite. Someone needed to do it. And then Noah, I forget what Noah wanted to do, but I didn't think it was going to be programming. And it's one of those things, the need was there. And then in order to accomplish the goal of achieving that need, he had to become good at programming. And then once he had become good at programming, he was kind of stuck. So
interesting. Now he's just typecast and he's stuck.
Well, he is typecast, he is stuck, but also he's quite good. Now he is having to transition again a little bit because he's transitioning from being the code monkey who's on his own to being a team lead, and that is obviously a different thing.
Of course. How many employees does Trex Arms have now?
We're about 80 people right now.
Oh my God.
Holy crap.
Dude,
it's kind of insane.
I'm about to hire on my second person and I'm like stressing, like trying to figure it out. 80 people.
It's very stressful. Wow. Now the good news is we've hired not just anybody. We've hired along. At first, we hired just anybody that we knew, and it was all younger people that we thought we could boss around. That sounds terrible, but But I was
No,
really
I'm enjoying
nervous
this.
about hiring, older, wiser people.
Yeah.
And one of the first people that I hired is a Marine colonel, retired, who
Wow.
used to fly fighter jets, and that was stressful to hire that
Yeah.
guy. I mean, he's a good friend, and he was then, so I knew that it was going to be fine. But I'd never taught anyone how to use a CNC machine before. I'd only just barely learned how to do what we were doing ourselves, and I was like, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to teach him this stuff. And then I was like, he can land F-18s on an aircraft carrier at night, so he will probably know how to run this machine that has 3 buttons on it pretty soon. He'll probably be okay.
He's probably going to be fine. Did he
Yeah.
bring any of those weird fighter traditions over to your facility?
So he had some time to get out of his squadron, his wing. He actually was in the Pentagon for a while, and then he was out for a while. So he had a chance to transition by the time that we got him. He'd been an elder at a church. He'd been in a bunch of non fighter jock leadership roles, which is great. Because he brings a whole bunch of wisdom and experience to the role. But it was a little daunting hiring that guy, and knowing that he was going to be asking me questions about how to do his job, and asking me questions about who he should hire and how we should tell them how to do their jobs. And but those older, wiser guys that we have brought on have been just inestimably valuable. That's the only way that the T-Rex could be the 80 people that it is today, is those 4 or 5 graybeards. We call them
the graybeards.
Yeah,
This is becoming more like Skyrim the longer this conversation goes, and I am.
What's the
100% here
meme
for
of
it.
that old guy leaning back, contemplating?
Pondering. He's pondering.
He's
Pondering, that's
It's
right.
like,
Pondering
Isaac,
the
you
orb.
better not be pondering the CNC machine again.
Speaking of which, I did say I saw a couple of good memes today, and I wanted to welcome you back.
Oh, thank you.
Randolph the White.
I'm back, man.
At the turning of the
tide.
tide.
We thought it'd be funny to do that. We'd actually been planning that. I was like, if somehow I got my account back, we actually had that video queued just in case we got it back. And then out of nowhere, dude, someone was like, hey, is your account back? And I was like, what? And sure enough, it was back. Who would have thought, man? Who would have thought? I did not think I was going to get that back.
Yeah.
At all.
No, it's going up against big meta now. It's so weird to say that.
It's weird to say meta.
I know. It's not good. Randolph the White is back. I'm thinking about doing like a battle with the Balrog against Instagram. To be clear, everyone says that I should not do that because I'll probably get banned again. So.
You should totally do it again.
You should totally do it.
What your backup account's like halfway to where your main account is, right?
My main account is at 510.
Never mind.
So it's about a fifth of the way there.
Oh, never mind.
So we're getting there, but we're gonna keep working it. So it'll be good. It'll be fine. But yeah, thank you, Isaac. You said you had memes for me.
Well, that was the main meme. I forget who actually threw that out there, but that was awesome. The Randolph the White.
I've seen a lot of them coming out, which is pretty incredible. So here's a question for you, Isaac. When you were researching into radios, what is your thoughts on crypto when it comes to radio systems and that type of stuff, especially in the civilian world? So like I've been doing some looking into and working with persistent systems. If you're familiar with those guys,
I am.
Wave relay.
I wish I would love to. I have this. This inside of me. There are 2 wolves. One of which wants the best stuff, and one of which wants to just work with stuff that's actually accessible to other people. So I know that I could call up friends like Mike and be like, Mike, do you know someone at Persistent Systems?
I sure do, man. I sure do.
How could I get my hands on an MPU-5 just to play with it?
Dude,
and then part of me is like,
hard.
what as fun as that would be, as awesome as that would be, like, what value is that to other T-Rex people if I have one cool radio?
Yeah. You need the entire system, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I've actually spent less time on some of that super high-end stuff just because the amount of research time I have is very small, and I'm trying to learn stuff that's useful for other people.
Yeah.
That sounds very altruistic of me, but I'm trying to make it like worth and not just a weird hobby that I have just for me.
I get it. I mean, that being said, like if you got the money for the MPU-5, like I would say that's probably among the best out there.
I'm
Like
sure they're from my understanding is they are breaking a lot of awesome new ground when it comes to a lot of very cool technologies, mesh topology and self-healing ad hoc networks and all this
Yep,
stuff I don't fully grasp. They
mesh
seem to
networking,
be
and we'll
leading
talk
that
offline.
the way. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
very, very cool stuff.
they're doing incredible stuff. If you let me say this, if and when you decide to come out to do more of that Recce series video stuff, we have a couple MPU-5s, so we'll go over like a familiarization. I think you'll like them. I think you're going to end up buying like 5 of them after you mess with them a little bit.
Well, they're only like $15,000 each, so
Yeah,
yeah.
chump change. Just have Lucas sell his quads and buy like 3.
But back on topic, crypto. So it kind of depends on what you're trying to do. Obviously, when you broadcast, or what's rather, amateurs are not allowed to broadcast. When you transmit,
Yeah.
you're sending out very detectable RF energy. So
Yes.
if I were in an offensive adversarial type role, I actually don't know that I would need radio content. I would just want to map where radios are. So whether they're encrypted or not, I don't care. I can see where they are and how often they're transmitting, whether they're encrypted or not. But on the other hand, if I'm doing like just general T-Rexy stuff and I'd like to have radios between the buildings, I definitely want that stuff encrypted because I don't want just random neighbors just tuning into our FRS channels and listening into all of the stuff that we would talk about on those radios. So I really like everything being encrypted, but it doesn't make you invisible.
No, absolutely not. And like, you still have to have, discipline as far as your RF energy transmissions and all that kind of stuff. Look,
Yeah.
it's almost like a white light in many ways, right? There's still going to be discipline, just like anything with sound, with light, with RF transmissions, with anything. You still have to be disciplined when you're using those in a recce, a mountain environment, or some type of non-permissive environment, to quote Travis Haley, right? Something like that. You just got to be careful. Don't want to get clapped by a guy with a deer rifle or something like that.
Yeah. And I think Russia is kind of leading the way with their electronic warfare stuff. Like they are super fast. They were doing stuff a few years ago in Ukraine, maybe it's 3 or 4 years ago now, where they were just finding people with really low power radios and dropping artillery shells right on them in like no time. And that was pretty interesting.
There's been a lot of really good articles dissecting a lot of these conflicts between Ukraine and Russia, and a lot of these smaller conflicts, and watching how these forces are employing modern technologies that aren't meant to be used in war, but employing them in war, whether it be something as simple as a Mavic 2 drone, all the way to actual military technology. But like you said, it's very telling and very interesting to read up on that and kind of see the way that warfare is going. The information age mixed with all this very cheap, very effective tech that's just anybody can get their hands on now. Can you imagine if in World War II you could just buy a drone for $1,000 and you could literally just scout out the enemy line? Like, that's huge, and that's now easily accessible for almost anybody. And these drones have huge ranges. Like, it's incredible. It's incredible.
How's it going, people? This is BR here, the producer of the Art and War podcast, to tell you about the Lads Patreon. Not only do we want to continue improving the quality of what we can do both here on the show and on Instagram, but we also want to elevate what we can do as a team. We're looking at pursuing some life-changing goals like acquiring property together and expanding what we can do massively in the future. It's a lofty goal, but one we want to include our audience in to let you know where your greatly appreciated support is going. But what's in it for you? Our Patreon subscribers enjoy 5 different tiers of exclusive perks, ranging from all of the content the lads would post on a pre-Zuckerberg Instagram, downloadable high-resolution guides, behind-the-scenes info like guest schedules, spicy memes, and at our highest tier, get monthly art commissions created by Nathan himself. You can find our Patreon via the link in this episode's description, or in the Seaburn Art Page's bio on Instagram.
Which I think kind of brings us neatly back to the main topic at hand. What is gun culture? Well, are you asking about gun culture 3.0? 4.0?
Kind of like,
I like this tangent that we're going
kind of
on.
like how we're getting there.
Eating proverbial popcorn.
I do think there's also some value in kind of going backwards with technology. I saw this kind of happen with the Taliban and ISIS-K when I was deployed. They don't use radios or anything like that. They'll still use runners or carriers, however you want to call it. They'll use like hand signals. They'll even use mirrors in the sunlight still. Like they went back primitive because we were able to intercept everything that they were doing. And we were able to put up, jammers for the IED purposes when they were using cell phones to detonate stuff. And our intelligence, we had to go down to their level to gather intel on what they were doing when we were, on the outskirts of their village. We had a guy who knew somebody in that village who would call him on a phone and be like, hey, what are people doing? Because like we can't hear them. We don't know because they're not talking. Like if they are talking, it's, face to face. So everything had to be very low tech. And I think if you don't have the money or the means of operating and obtaining these things, it is worth going back and seeing what had worked before technology kind of came.
You bring up a lot of really good points. Signal mirrors, I could talk about that for hours. That was like a big thing when we were going through SEER, because that's how you signal aircraft, right? And like depending on the size of the signal mirror, especially like even the ones that are like the size of like an index card, correct lighting conditions, 10 miles, man. Like you can, and like big ones, like those big parabolic ones they used in the olden military days, like I want to say like depending on terrain and stuff, like a huge amount. I want to say 100, but I believe that's probably me misquoting, but 50 miles for sure. Like incredible ranges on those types of things. And getting back to these more primitive skills is everything, right? And like we're touching on in our videos. I know that you guys are getting into it as well, but like there's definitely a pullback from technology, right? Because this war has been so centered around quick raids and lots of tech, and it's worked very well. But that just because one war is fought that way doesn't mean that all conflicts will fight that way. So taking a look back at like, the Vietnam long-range recon patrols, those guys, how do they run things? How much ammo do they carry? How do they communicate? How do they move through the jungle? There's a lot of these, I guess, skills that were lost that we need to kind of reclaim.
Yeah. And I think that is kind of what I personally would like to see with gun culture 3.0. We're very gear focused, which is good. I like us to have tools, but I think that we compartmentalize too much. And I think that gun culture 3.0 should really be like everything is a weapon, everything is a tool. And a little bit less of that compartmentalization. So it's like we can do Morse code, and we're not locked into stuff too much. Do we have encrypted radios? Can we send Morse code over those? Do we have signal mirrors? We can send Morse code over those. There's a lot of flexibility there, because we are thinking of everything as a tool, not just getting stuck into like specific gear things. And part of the reason that we're stuck into specific gear things in the United States is because a lot of these things have legal categories. So like your firearms are a special kind of item, and they're different from another thing, when technically they're not. They're just another type of weapon. They're just another type of tool. And we tend to think of things in these very modern legalized categories. And America has more freedom than anywhere else, but we still have these things locked into these tight categories. And the fact is, this podcast is the most effective weapon that Mitch and Nathan have, far more than any of their actual firearm class weapons. And just thinking about these things kind of non-linearly, I forget what the term is, but thinking about these things very outside of the box, I believe is sort of the future of gun culture, where it's not going to be so focused on like, I'm one of those guys who is identify as being a silencer owner. I identify as being night vision capable, but like just having a wider ability to use a whole bunch of different random stuff in toolboxes.
Yeah, the power that videos or video games, people kind of in the industry just talking about things and demonstrating that, hey, like it's no longer about, Punisher skulls and, being the sheepdog. It's about, like also having fun. You add this entertainment factor to it so that you can have win a battle in the culture war, where maybe somebody doesn't like guns, but they like how Garand Thumb talks about guns and wears, his doctor's outfit,
Yep,
and
well,
how he
me
fucks
too.
with Ron Jeremy, like simple things like that. They all have their place and they all influence things. And I totally agree with you. People's voices, be it, our, low level podcasts or a high tier, high quality, sit down chat with Isaac about, comms and land nav. They're incredibly valuable and they all have their place. And I think that's kind of what's shaping that next step for a lot of people. It's no longer about, oh, we're learning about the really cool high speed stuff, CQB. It's all this great, and you should learn CQB. Don't get me wrong, but how do you get to that area where you need to conduct CQB? Maybe you have to move through, 15 clicks of dense brush and a mountain and all these other things. How do you route plan? Route planning is something that I want to talk about more.
How do you not fucking freeze to death?
Yeah, I mean, how are you, like beans, bullets, all those things? And I think people are very excited. I don't want to say short-sighted. I think excited because they see the fun, cool stuff of small unit tactics. They don't think of how we get to small unit tactics. How are we getting to where we can perform, individual squad level drills and all these other things that I think are getting talked about more and more with, your recce videos and, just land nav, comms, all those things are incredibly valuable to moving the culture forward.
That's how it goes. You brought up a really, really good idea that I want to go back to, and that was, what is your best? I think you said it, Isaac. What is your best weapon, right? And you said for Mitch and Nathan, we have this podcast, right? This information, and I think that's really important because you touched on it, Mitch, about what is drawing people in. And this is kind of what I've gotten at for a long time, and I know you have as well, Isaac. But there's multiple avenues, right? Whether it be through Lucas's videos, you like the way he shoots, you like how he will liken it to video games sometimes, how he talks about it from a civilian perspective. That's going to get people, right? Or they watch my stupid Ron Jeremy videos and they go, haha, that's funny, that's hilarious, I'm going to watch it. Or they watch Demo Ranch, or they watch Kentucky Ballistics. I have a completely different idea of what a 2A advocate is than what I used to have, because it used to be for me like a 2A advocate is only someone who like says, fuck the NFA, repeal the NFA, all that kind of shit, or fuck the ATF. But I really changed my opinion when I went to this event with Demo Ranch and Scott from Kentucky Ballistics, and we were all of our fans came in to meet us and all that kind of stuff. And they're way bigger than me, but all of Demo's and Scott's fans were all like ages 5 to like 10. And I'm like, holy shit, this is amazing. This is the youngest generation coming in normalized to firearms. If that's not 2A advocacy, I honestly don't know what is at that point. So everyone's saying that, like, well, they'll get on Scott, or they'll get on, Matt from Demo Ranch, be like, oh, they're not saying, repeal these laws. I'm like, there's different ways to approach it. Their audience isn't gonna, they're, a 7-year-old kid, when you say fuck the NFA, disband the ATF, they're not going to care. But what they are there for is watching that guns are a normal thing to own, that they're a right, and that you can own them. There's nothing wrong with that, and that is completely normal, no problems. And as they grow up, they're going to grow up with that same idea, and that's so vitally important. All this content, this microcosm, this ecosystem of firearm content is important in my mind. So I always get really kind of fired up when people say, oh, I hate his content because it's not, doesn't help 2A advocacy. I'm like, there's so many ways to go about it, and it's so short-sighted to say that it's only one way to do it.
Yeah, I was at a Appleseed shooting event earlier this year, and I will be honest, I was personally very bored while I was there. But my son James, who
Appleseed
was
people punching the air right now.
Well, when I was there, or rather, I should rephrase. I would have found it bored if I were there by myself, but I was there with my son James, who was 5.5 at the time. He was totally into it, and watching him be so totally cool. Into it was awesome. He was, the Ruger 1022 is way too big for him, and he shot maybe 45 bullets over the course of almost a whole day. But he wasn't just plinking. Like, he was trying to do the stuff that they were doing, and these range officers who, were fuds and sticklers for a lot more rules than we would like to put up with, were calling out this 5-year-old like, hey, you got to remember to put your safety on. He's like, oh yes, my safety. Like, it was so fun to watch him. And that was exactly what new people needed, or really young people. Even, James has grown up around guns, and he's even been out at the range when Mike Jones of celebrated Garand Thumb fame has been out there.
That's
and but he was at this Appleseed event, and he was just totally focused on doing the assignment and understanding the assignment and shooting the guns and seeing other kids out there. So yeah, it was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah, that completely illustrates the point, right? There's a time and a place for different types of information, and everyone's going to be at a different point in their lives. So it's always, you just gotta. If there's one thing I could say to the gun community, like, support each other.
Yep.
Stop fighting. Oh my god! Like, we have so many other things to fight. Like, don't fight each other. Like, good God, please stop.
It's a spectrum too. We can be at gun culture 2.0 or 3.0. Somebody can be, 2 steps ahead of us already. And then there's somebody that can just be starting out and be at that 1.0 of, all right, shotguns and bolt action rifles, and
cool.
We're all at different points and we're all at different stages. I would say a vast majority of all of our audiences are kind of in, transitioning to that next level, where we start becoming that more lethal person, and not just that one trick pony. I know small unit tactics, but it is very interesting when people start, they enter the gun community, and be it simply during the pandemic, they were extremely left their whole life. They were very anti-gun, but during the pandemic and during the riots, they got scared, and they're like, hey, look, like, I might need this one day. So I'm going to go and I'm going to get it. And they're on a completely different part of the spectrum than you and I are. We're saying fuck the ATF, and they're like, ATF is good, but I also might need this too, and I'm going to make sure that we do everything to the T, to the book, and then maybe after times are uncertain, we're going to sell it. But those are the people we need to be trying to reach out to, because it's not you and me. We're all kind of, we're there. We're like, we want to move forward. We got all these ideas and plans. We have this concept, fuck the ATF. We need to get the people that aren't there to kind of get a little bit over here.
Well, that's precisely what you guys did, Isaac, when you brought out the Lucas Botkin Japanese clone.
Yes.
What's his name? I always forget his name. I actually that's right, dude. He's so cool. So I actually almost met up with him when I was in Japan not too long ago for some military work, but COVID restrictions are too bad. But I mean, can you talk to that? I think that was really cool.
Yeah.
That
was really awesome. For a number of levels. And I think that there's several reasons that video is so cool. One is it's just interesting. It's a weird experiment. But also it's fascinating to me, and I think it's fascinating to other people, to just watch this clash of cultures, or not clash, but this kind of mix of guy who's never shot a gun before, now shooting a gun, guy who loves guns but hasn't gotten to experience them, getting to, and how fun that is. But also seeing all these other shooters just having a ball with a new person and enjoying life, very wholesome. And all the airsofters get vindicated, like, yes, this has value. So I think people just really enjoyed seeing this guy who loved guns but had never gotten to use real guns. He just got to enjoy shooting real guns. And it was also really cool to see Lucas and other real gun people just enjoying watching him enjoy it, and just being a part of that was super was super fun for everybody that was involved. And it's just really fun for I think people watching that, just to see the love of firearms, but also the love of discipline and learning a skill and stuff like that come out. And everybody was just having a ball that day.
Hey, Isaac, have you ever seen those like memes where the guy's like, hey, I'd like to order a pizza, and he's like, yeah, what type of pizza do you want? He's like, oh, can I get a boneless pizza? Have you seen that stuff? When he says boneless, it's always like boneless. And so it just go. So I was looking up signal near range. Oh, I'm being recorded now, so I got to make sure I get it right. Okay,
200 miles.
Yeah. So with like the typical ones that you have, like the small ones, like little pocket ones, about 10 miles, and that's pretty much it. But those bigger ones, the index card ones, you can do 20 to 50, and then the really big ones, I think I was reading it's like 120 or something, but you'll probably be getting 20 to 50. But that's incredible when you think of it. Like that's insane. Like who could have thought? But I feel like I cut you off, Isaac. You were talking about Japanese guy
I
airsofting
was
it and just crushing it.
Yeah, no, I was re-recording the bit that my mic messed up, so they could drop it
good.
in later if they want. But that was
good.
That was awesome, and it was such a fun thing that, as great as the video is, the actual day, it was just so great being on the range. And I was only on the range for a brief moment in time, slight behind the scenes moment. That was we. This is going to sound terrible, but but we had a baby the day before. And I just ran out to my parents' house to pick up the kids because they were they were at my mom's house, which is the range is on the way. So I stopped at the range briefly while I was picking up the kids, and my wife was at home with the new baby, and I stopped by, and it was just like I was having a great day already. But then seeing Liku out on the range shooting and everybody enjoying it so much. Yeah, I have super fond memories of that are related to a whole bunch of other stuff. But
that's really cool.
It was awesome.
But you think about it, and I remember a time when if somebody airsofted, they'd be like, "Oh, shut up, airsofter! You're just an airsofter. Like, screw you. We don't like you." And oh, you're just you're just LARPing with your stupid airsoft kit. And then Lucas came out that video, and then suddenly people are like, "Hey, actually, I think you can actually train airsofting." And now you see people like Travis Haley airsofting. You see Mojo, he's airsofting. You see a lot of people. Hell, I just got an airsoft rifle because it just looks fun, and like I feel like we're shedding a lot of that stupid weight that we had on our are we gonna say the community as we kind of bust through misconceptions and stuff. And I just thought it was really cool.
Speaking on that stuff, you brought up 2 points so far this episode that I wanna kind of bring up again. So you brought up back when Lucas and T-Rex folks were like, "Hey, you want to know? We're gonna focus on more the civilian side." At the time, that was a very controversial thing to do because it went against that culture at the time. And much like airsofting, I remember when that, the T-Rex crew kind of started to branch into that, and it was very controversial at the time then. Is this like a process and a plan, or is this like, how can we reach more people regardless of what people fucking say? I'm just kind of curious, what's the driving force behind taking these controversial stances to progress things?
Man, there's a lot there. Isaac, do you want to go first? You look like your brain's so big. Just go for it, dude.
I don't know. Well, it's not as strategic as you think. It's not like, well, if we move this Japanese airsofter here, we'll make a 10 million view video that will move the needle this far. But it's been more. We've really wanted to equip civilians, so we've really wanted to push specific things, and we've been less interested in pursuing military contracts, for example. And part of that is not strategic, it's just bandwidth. Like, we don't have the bandwidth to do both, and we prioritized one over the other. And that just naturally leads to certain interests, and certain interests lead to us making certain types of content. So it hasn't been nearly as strategic as it probably could have been. And the other thing is, I feel like we get a lot of credit for certain things that have happened in the industry. And people are like, they started that wave. And it's like, I don't know. We definitely surfed that wave. Like, that's definitely the wave that we wanted to be on. And we kind of, with body armor, we talked about body armor a lot, but we weren't alone in that. And then when 2020 happened and everyone was like, oh, it's time for civilians to own body armor, everyone was like, T-Rex made that happen. I don't think we made that happen, but we definitely did position ourselves by having had talked about it a lot. But we weren't the only ones. There were a bunch of people talking about body armor, selling body armor. But that wave was going to break, I think, regardless. And it was just the people who had paddled out into the right spot that caught it.
Nice. I think there's a lot to it too. It comes down to, what's good training, right? What's going to add and what's going to build up the community in my mind. And so there's a lot of things that were, firearm related, that were 2A related, that were training related, that just weren't done because there was a stigma. Because at some point, some, how would you say it? Like the think tank, not a think tank, but I don't know, a person of interest, somebody who was big in the community said that this was stupid. Somebody somewhere was like, hey, airsofting is stupid because I served in the military, or it's stupid because, we shoot real guns, and that's just dumb. And then, just through recognizing that it could be good for small unit tactics and to also just have fun. We're like, no, it's kind of cool. And all it really took was, somebody to put that thought out there who's influential enough to have kind of move that needle. So in the case, you got like people like Mojo, you got people like Lucas coming out and being like, no, like airsoft is fun. Like just play it. Like who cares what people think about it, And everyone's like, yeah, that was pretty dumb. And the same thing goes for like video games. Like I remember when everyone was like, no, like video games and guns, like guns are serious, video games are not serious. Like meanwhile, I've talked about it in the past, but like I got into guns because I played GoldenEye on Nintendo 64, and I thought those guns are super cool. And I'm like, I want to have. I don't know what a KF7 Soviet is, but I want one. And and you have people getting into it. So for a lot of what we see with like pulling the needle and stuff, I think it's just stuff that's already going to be beneficial for our community, and just people having the guts to say, no, this is cool, this is good to do. Like why are we not doing this right now? And it just takes somebody to say that, and for people to really look at it and be like, no, this is cool. Yeah, airsoft's cool. No, video games are cool. Reki's cool. Fieldcraft is cool. And who knows, maybe we'll hit a dark age again in like 10 years where it completely reverses and it's back to Mark 18 and CQBs and CQB. Who knows? Who knows? But for right now, I think we're in a really good point in our culture.
It's very much like a spectrum, and there is a time and a place to be serious about firearms and tactical training, and then there's also a time and a place where you just got to show that it's fun. And that's the most important thing when it comes to firearm ownership for me. I mean, it's really fucking fun to go out. And like tomorrow I'm doing it. I'm bringing a Mosin. I'm bringing 2 Mosins and like 400 rounds of ammo. And we're printing out a big Chungus target. And we're just going to go, shoot big Chungus, and maybe I'll print out a Ron Jeremy one. But
you should.
It's just fun to do, and you have to have that balance, because if you're serious all the time about something, people that want to get involved are going to see like, oh shit, I can't be involved in this unless I am at this level already. There's no entry level to it.
Yeah.
And
well, think about. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, think about how one thing that we basically always do, and when we talk to someone, we ask how they got into guns and how they actually got into this community. And almost everyone, without exception, said one of 2 things. They had a 22 when they were young, or they played video games. 90% of them, started in something simple and fun. Their dad brought them a 22. They played GoldenEye. They played Call of Duty. I think my big tipping point was Modern Warfare 2 and getting a 177 BB rifle when I was a kid.
Well, like we've talked about before, 1 minute you're 5 and watching Kentucky Ballistics run over watermelons, and then, before you know it, you're 21 living in your basement watching Paul Harrell. It's a vicious cycle, but we got there. But yeah, I mean, like we've talked about, everything's in a spectrum. But I'm so on board with where we are as a culture right now, as far as our gun culture is concerned, that I love it, man. And Mitch, you brought up a really good point about being serious with the firearm, and that's really important, because there is a distinct difference between people who know firearms and people who don't know firearms but still do things with firearms. Alec Baldwin, let's talk about it.
Yeah, yes.
Let's talk about Alec Baldwin.
Oh man. All right. Did not pull the trigger, Alec Baldwin.
It's not my fault, Alec Baldwin.
So you hear this a lot, right? So he's saying right now, he said, I didn't pull the trigger. I would never do that while pointing a gun at somebody, right? But people who are in the firearms world and who know guns, we know that there were a multitude of rules that were broken to get to the point where a round was put through somebody's chest. Like, it really takes a lot to get to that point. So, people like us, like, I'm never going to point a firearm at somebody. It's just insane. And on top of that, on that weapon, to make it for it to fire, it can't just fire. The hammer has to be cocked. It's an actual motion that you must do. And so what it sounds like is he thumbed it back. And as you know, you got to be careful when you're thumbing those back, because if those slip, they do have enough energy to detonate that primer and to fire that round. And so that's apparently what happened to him. And now he's saying, well, it wasn't my fault. I didn't pull the trigger. I'm like, no, this is 100% your fault. You release the hammer. That's the same thing, and it's these people who just don't know. They just don't know these rules of firearm safety. They're not into guns like we are. They don't understand them, and it's so frustrating when they then turn the blame for themselves. They're like, well, I didn't know this well enough, therefore it's definitely the gun's fault.
Yeah, there is a huge amount of people who think I can buy this gun that I saw in Black Hawk Down, and I'm
Great
good to
movie.
go. That's it.
M14.
Yeah, I saw somebody, do, small unit tactics with this rifle. I own this rifle now. Therefore, I have all those capabilities that I see everybody else doing. And it always starts, I say this even to my young soldiers now, whenever we're about to go train, they're like, Sergeant, we already know, basic firearm safety. Our weapons are already zeroed. And I'm like, yeah, but we're going to fucking establish this baseline today before we start doing this stuff, because it doesn't matter how trained you are, complacency will kill people. And
100%.
there's events that happen all the time, even in, some mid to high tier level of operators who do this for a living. There's accidents that happen because people get complacent and people forget that the basic fundamentals are so important and they need to be established and practiced all the time. And I think that gets overlooked by people that get very excited. And I love the excitement to want to go out and buy that gun and to get out and start doing stuff. But before you start doing that CQB with your friends, you need to get out there, practice basic firearm safety, make sure those weapons are properly zeroed and that you can properly manipulate that weapon safely. And safety, I can safety. I'm not going to keep going down this range and tangent.
You're 100% right. And actually, Isaac, this is something that I talked with Lucas about, and actually I changed the way I did my videos back in the day because of this discussion. Because I used to start and do all my videos back in 2017. I would say, and don't forget the most important part is looking cool, right? I'd always say that. That was like my thing, and everyone would laugh about it. But I was talking to Lucas about it, and we were talking about culture and stuff, and we were just talking about training, and his big thing was, hey, I want to really push people to get training, and I kind of realized, I was like, man, I think I'm doing this wrong, dude. I think I'm approaching this the wrong way. Like, it's funny to say, look cool and stuff, but at the end of the video, the people who are getting this far are genuinely interested in information and genuinely probably want to get better. And so we changed it. We changed it to, hey, get training from, a lot of the guys that me and you guys know, like Cogworks and Bear Solutions, all great guys who are well vetted, and kind of changing that mindset from, hey, buy this gun to look cool, to, hey, buy this gun because you want to train a shit ton with it.
Yes,
train until the barrel fails, train until the bolt shears and breaks, train until you have to buy a whole new weapon because you have put so many hours on this weapon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's great. I didn't actually notice the change because I rarely finish your videos. No, I actually knew that had happened. I remember
podcast is over.
I remember fondly the important thing is looking cool.
Yeah. You just watched the logo you made and just shut it off.
Yeah, you watch. He's like, still using my logo. That's right, Mike. X's it out.
Sure. Yeah.
Just gotta check. I'm just gonna get a bill for every video it's in. You're like, so
just where's my residuals, Mike?
It's royalty time.
This is my property, so I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I think that part of the training and safety issue, obviously they go together, but I think they also go together with sort of destigmatizing guns, because if we can just turn guns back into tools, like a firearm is not a magical talisman. It doesn't protect you just because you have it, and you don't get good at shooting it just because you're holding it. Like, it is like any other tool. It is like a sword. It is like a car. It is like anything else that is a mechanical object that you got to know how to use. And I think that we have fallen into this trap of, like, guns are their own special category of thing. There's the spiritual realm, there's the physical realm, and then there's guns in the middle.
There's guns, a little holy trinity with the guns there in the middle. No, you're not wrong, man. That is certainly a thing, and you can see that even today. Like, I put out a video on the SR-15, and it immediately turned into people using my video to like justify that their weapon was better than anybody else's, you know. But that's not what people should be arguing about. Like I saw one of the discussions going on Facebook, and somebody's like, well, um, you know, Knight's Armament is better than LMT, which is better than Daniel Defense, and then Noveski fits in there somewhere, and here's Radian, and if you have a BCM, you're just gonna die. And I'm like, dude, what does it matter what weapon you have if you can outshoot the piece of shit next to you? Like, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, if I sit down or I go to a competition, somebody's like, hey, check out my Knight's Armament SR15 or check out XYZ super expensive build, and then I completely destroy that guy in the shooting competition. I don't care what gun he has, because like you said, Isaac, it's more about the training. It's about your capabilities, not so much about the weapon. Have a good weapon, sure, but like, man, if you can't push that weapon, it doesn't matter. It's like a pair of golf clubs. Buy the best golf clubs known to mankind, and if you can't golf, you're still going to have a really bad game of golf, you know, and it doesn't matter.
And I think that there's like, it even gets worse than that, because there's a confidence that comes, like as Mitch was talking about. This is part of the reason that when guys and girls go out to shoot, a lot of times the girl shoots better with less experience, because she's like, oh, this is a gun. I have to hold it. I have to aim it. I have to pull the trigger. And guys are like, this is a gun. I am now John Wick. And it's
wonderful.
And there's a whole, you know, chunk of cultural baggage that's attached to firearms when guys pick them up, and a lot of times girls are able to just be like, okay, so we aim down the sights, we pull the trigger, we try not to move it while the trigger is being pulled. I'll focus on those things.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it also comes down to, it's like cars, right? Like a guy is supposed to be good at certain things. A guy must be able to change a tire. A guy must be able to cook a steak, and a guy must be able to shoot a gun with zero instruction, because that's just something that you know how to do, because it's expected that you know how to do this before you show up anywhere, right? You show up to you buy a steak, and you're the person hosting it. You're expected to grill the steak and know how to do it, just like, you know, you're expected to know how to shoot a gun. So I see the same thing. It's like the guy, it's both John Wick and both the cultural expectation that as a man in the United States, you should know how to shoot. And then if they don't, they're like, I'm just going to wing it.
Yeah.
But
I've seen a lot of Bruce Willis movies. I got this.
Yeah.
And not only do they just wing it, they'll wing it with such false confidence, and it's unsafe. And speaking of Daniel Defense real quick, they might sponsor the podcast, so buy a Daniel Defense and you will be better at shooting than anybody else. Nathan, you were saying?
Approved.
You were saying something, Nathan, then I cut you off because I'm an awful podcast host.
I don't remember. You got into the Daniel Defense thing, and I just it went out of my head. In one ear or the other.
Talking more when you're a little bit more drunk. You vibing.
Go get a White Claw, Nathan.
You know, enjoying. I've got.
I love you, Nathan. You're wonderful.
You're wonderful. Yeah, I'm vibing. You know, I try not to drink more than once a week. Maybe I'll have a single White Claw, just one.
There is definitely a huge problem, I think, especially with veterans more than a lot of people, where people have the military does a great job of installing confidence into people that should not have confidence in a lot of things. And I'm not saying the military doesn't make you good at stuff, because it can help you get good at stuff. But you think of what the average, I'm not talking about, you know, some of these high tier level operators. Think of, you know, the average soldier in their experience. They go to the qual range once every 6 months, and they, you know, qualify on a flat range. They're shooting, you know, an Alt-C qual paper from like 15 meters away, and they're given 50 rounds, and they won't even do it the proper way. And then they're like, look, I shot expert. I am an expert on shooting. I am very confident in CQB. I'm going to get out of the military, and I'm going to teach everybody the right way to do things. And because I'm in the military, I'm confident people will be confident in me. And I want to really harp and say that your military experience and perspective can help and can give you a perspective. But like we were talking about with guys in general, when it's kind of expected of you to know how to do this, you should not have this false confidence if you are an actually trained and actually proficient. I wouldn't even consider myself proficient. I'm always learning. I'm always learning. if I don't know something, or even if I think I know something and somebody also kind of knows something, I'm going to listen to what they have to say because maybe they'll know something that I don't.
Yeah.
And
What were you saying? The military
Yeah.
does a really, really good job of
Great false
instilling a lot of
confidence.
false confidence.
You know, it's a lot of stuff was brought up there. The I you know, so a lot of the guys I worked with in the military, like a lot of the scout guys and striker guys who do the scout stuff, they've been awesome shooters, man. Like these guys are getting after it, and it's all individual, right? How is this squad handling themselves and conducting themselves? And I've worked with some really stellar guys. You know, the thing that always gets me is you like randomly in Instagram, you'll get sent like a page, and you'll go to it, and this guy is teaching the most off the wall craziest disarms, craziest tactics you've ever seen, and you're like,
Detroit Dust.
why are, dude, honestly, and I'm like, why are people listening to this guy? And then, sure enough, he's like, hey, I was in the military. And when you really delve deep, it was nothing combat related. It was nothing that had anything to do with firearms, but they use that military moniker to boost themselves up, and that's stupid.
I was a cook in the Navy, just like Steven
20 years
Seagal in Under
experience.
Siege.
Yeah.
Well, he's completely qualified in my mind. Whatever happened to Steven Seagal?
He's in Russia now.
He's still making movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't he a deputy
hold
for a
on.
little while?
Yes, he was a deputy
he
down
was a
south.
deputy, but re fucking wind. He's in Russia now.
Yeah,
he's a. It's actually kind of hilarious to see pictures of him with Vladimir Putin because Putin is very small, and Steven Seagal is extremely large right now.
What?
No, he's got a Russian passport. Like he's kind of a cultural ambassador of Russia, or to. I don't know. I don't understand. It's weird.
He does stuff.
We
over
are
there. Like that.
God.
Like Dennis Rodman
has-
did shit with Kim Jong Un. Like it's strange.
Dude, we live in the weirdest timeline.
This is the weirdest timeline. Also apparently
Good for
he
him.
has
Can't be
a
real.
lavender
You guys
farm
are screwing
now.
with me at this
It's
point.
995 acres. No, I swear to God. Oh, he lost in 2007, but he has a line of therapeutic oils and Tibetan goji berries.
That's clinical.
He also he had a blues album at one point, but he was playing blues on like some ethnic instrument. I forget which. It's kind of, at this point. At first, it was like, "Oh, Steven Seagal, don't be weird. Just keep making awesome action movies." And I was like, "No, Steven Seagal, be weird.
Yeah.
This is better."
This is way better. Man, how do we get into Steven Seagal? This is my fault.
Well, one of the things that is interesting to me that is kind of frustrating occasionally is I will be talking to military guys or ex-military guys, and they have fascinating experiences that I want to hear about, but they're talking about weapons or military hardware or fighting stuff that they have some false confidence in, or maybe they were a truck driver and they want to tell me about advanced weaponry stuff. And it's like, well, I don't want to say like, no, sorry, don't tell me about the how great the 249 is. I have one, and it's not amazing. But do tell me about stuff that you saw in Fallujah. Like, do tell me stuff that you saw on the road. Tell me what it was like being in that culture. Tell me what was happening on base. Tell me some of the experiences that you have that are utterly unique to you and your time in Afghanistan at that exact moment. And they're like, no, I'm just a straight up warrior, dude. I just fight and I just shoot. It's like, what a missed opportunity, for me to have a cool conversation.
Yeah, dude.
But, yeah.
And it brings up like good stuff too. Like a lot of these people have really compelling, very interesting information to tell us about, tracking, counter tracking, ambushing, counter ambushing, movement techniques, like stuff that you wouldn't be able to get from living a mostly civilian life. Like I think about my time as a survival guy in the Air Force, which was incredible, and I got to spend for a couple of years. I was in the woods, just out there for at minimum 1 week out of the month, usually closer to 2, sometimes even 3 if I did back to back, and that's a lot of time to be spending working on your field craft, working on the way you move over twigs and how you crack branches and watching for tracks and counter tracking and all that kind of stuff. And that's stuff that you can't always get because typically in the real world you have to have a job and you can't be out there for those periods of time. So that was a really unique thing that I was able to get in the military. And I'm like, that's cool knowledge that you can gain. That's really cool stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is frustrating that we have this culture that takes
That's
veterans or even combat veterans and says what you bring to the table is weapons proficiency, and maybe they have just incredible uh, other experiences or information or knowledge to pass on, and they should be doing something more interesting than teaching rifle 101 at
Yeah.
random places or starting coffee companies.
And I also blame our culture for that somewhat, where right now what is sexy, or what was sexy for the longest time was, you teach your super high speed rifle course, and that's what was sexy for so long. And what would have been less sexy was, I'm going to teach you movement into the objective 101.
Yeah.
Like no one wants to hear about that. You're like, hey, in today's 1 week class, we're going to travel approximately 40 kilometers a day with a 50-pound pack, and we're going to infill in. Actually, that does sound really cool when I think about it. But
Yeah.
it sounds cool now because people are kind of getting into it. But the culture shifts. So I'm hoping with a lot of this culture shift that we can get a lot of this really cool information that a lot of really stellar guys have out there. We can learn more about a lot of the stuff. I remember when I was first getting into the military, one of my professors in college was a former Vietnam long range recon patrol guy. God, I can't talk right now. And I would just pick his brain for hours and hours and just learn about, living in the jungle and moving through the jungle and combat loadouts. And it was so interesting to me, becoming the whole ghost of the jungle there, blending in and becoming one with it and trying not to disturb it, and tracking and counter tracking patrols. It's such interesting information and such valuable information that, that you can get from, these Vietnam guys, and now from a lot of these guys coming out of this 20-year period of GWAT experience. There's so many valuable experiences that we can get, and hopefully not lose these lessons learned.
Yeah.
I was just talking with Redbeard Tactical yesterday. Yeah, if you don't know him,
Oh,
he's
I like him.
It's a
Yeah.
German and Austrian, and then one other guy. Then they kind of one was a recce guy, one was a seer guy over in Europe, and we were talking.
Sick.
We at one point, him and I were both
Yeah.
on the same base, not only in Afghanistan together, but in Germany. And we were talking about the patrolling academy. This was the very first thing I ever did after I got out of basic and airborne school. I did the patrolling academy in Hohenfeld, Germany, with my unit. And at the time, I didn't really understand the skills that I was learning and the perspective that I was being opened up to. I was like, holy shit! I don't remember if it was like 10 or 20 days. All the days blended. It was miserable. We walked around the mountains of Germany, constantly getting fragoed on different operations. So it was like, we're moving here. Don't be seen by Op 4. Oh, frago. Now we're going to move to this other side of the mountain. And it was like this for less than 20 days, whatever it turned out to be. And it was fucking miserable. It was so miserable. But when I look back on training like that, I find it more... Oh, it depends on the situation, I guess. I find it just as valuable as when we were doing, CQB training up in Ukraine in old abandoned Soviet concrete hotels. Like it was equal, less, more. I guess that's a perspective, but that type of stuff that in the moment you're like, this sucks, is so incredibly valuable. Just moving through the mountains and land naving and learning how to be quiet, dealing with one MRE a day and having to eat the salt packet because you're so dehydrated and your body's not absorbing things.
Nice. Get fucked, Mitch.
It was the first thing I did. I was the only private that made it through. Everybody else dropped out. They were getting injured or actually injured. And I was super proud of that. I was the one private to make it with the other NCOs.
That's absolutely incredible.
I got to make fun of everybody for it.
I'm going to
have
pivot
to
here.
say,
Oh, go ahead.
Huge,
Go ahead, Isaac.
huge fan of Redbeard Tactical, and I love the stuff that he's bringing out. And I love what he's doing on Instagram. Like, they need to have that stuff in a book. But today, he does this all the time. He has this long series of Instagram stories with quizzes, And so today's was like, you have been shot down behind enemy lines, or I forget the scenario, but you're stuck behind enemy lines. You have an unencrypted radio with very little battery. You have a map, you have this. What's your first move? And there's the 4 questions. And I love doing those because they are so fascinating, and they're things that I don't know. 90% of the time I get the wrong answer, always. And but they're so fascinating because there's stuff that is outside of that CQB realm, but it is stuff that is so interesting and useful and valuable, and not just valuable in wartime, but like this would be stuff that you would want to have in the back of your brain for other emergency scenarios, just ways that you want to efficiently get places or talk to people. And then obviously if wartime happens, you really want that stuff in the back of your brain.
Yeah.
He's
tracking,
incredible.
counter-tracking,
You'd love to see
advancing to contact, all of those things. He puts out really, really good content.
Cool.
Beautiful.
Knowing how to break contact is very important for me because I know I'm going to run away. So I might as well just make sure that I do it the right way.
That's good. It's a good point. Now, here's a question for you, Isaac. I'm going to pivot slightly. So gun culture has changed a lot. And you know who has not changed with the culture? The NRA. What does the future of gun culture...
Oh.
Dude, we're going to do it, dude. So my question is, like, what does... As gun culture has changed completely, a lot of these gun rights organizations have not. And so, like, for the NRA, like, what does their future look like? Like, what do you think is going to happen, Isaac? I mean, you guys are pretty fiery on this type of stuff, so I love hearing about it.
Well, there's 2 answers. One is the bigger organization that relies on our grandparents for donations isn't going to be around for very long because our grandparents aren't going to be able to continually give them money. And the culture war has changed, and they have not caught up. So I think that the larger organization of the NRA is going to fall apart eventually. But they have enough cultural momentum that, I don't know, there'll probably be NRA magazines and NRA stuff for a while. But where they are actually successful is more at the local level. So when we were fighting this one ammo tax in Tennessee, we actually got tremendous help from the local NRA lobbyist. She was fantastic. She was everything that the upper echelon NRA folks are not. So the good news is that there are people like that who will go and fight the fights that need fighting, and will find people to ally with if the big NRA goes away. But I think stuff will just pop up, and there are older organizations like Gun Owners of America that I think have stayed really. They've stayed. I wouldn't say that they have stayed true to like an old-fashioned concept and now they need to change, but like their principles were really solid to begin with. So even if they failed to change for certain cultural stuff, they still were in the right. So like the NRA made some significant missteps when they did things like, oh, well, it's scary when we talk about weapons, so let's stop calling firearms weapons and start calling them sporting rifles. And that was like a nice little pragmatic sidestep in the 1950s, maybe, but it turned into a massive mistake to not just stick to your guns, so to speak.
100%.
So there have been, I think, more faithful organizations like Gun Owners of America who they were right in the past and they're still right, and they haven't needed to make cultural changes. But then there's opportunities that open up for new organizations. Mm-hmm. But I think that a lot of that eventually goes away, hopefully, because what would be great is if there were organizations like the NRA that didn't do our work for us, so that we could just sit at home and send them $20 a month to solve our problems for us. But if they just helped us organize so we could actually do the work that we should personally be responsible for, that I think is really important. And we're getting to the point now where maybe only now is gun culture 3.0 ready for that, because our grandparents didn't want to lobby for super basic, obvious Second Amendment stuff. They just wanted to send $20 to the NRA and let them talk to the politicians. And we're now at the point where we got to really take, we got to carry some of this water ourselves. And so an organization that helps us organize to do that better is more useful than an organization that says, just send in your $20 and it's handled. Don't worry about it. Go back to your Netflix.
Well, that brings up another question too, is, along with the NRA, you have a lot of companies also that were kind of, I think complicit is the right word, with a lot of the missteps that the NRA made. And so the question is, so the question is like, how do we treat these companies? Because this question has been posed to me. Like, we take companies like Ruger, Springfield, and a couple others that have made kind of serious political missteps. And how do we? What do we do? Is this a company where we're like, hey, remember that time you did that? No forgiveness, or is it like, hey, Ruger's changed? How do we? What do you do?
I honestly don't know. Because especially with some of these giant companies, like some of the big gun companies get bought and sold, and they're owned by different people, and they're owned by like 100% political enemies, or giant. They're owned by ginormous financial companies that hate firearms and firearms freedoms. But there's people that work there that don't, and they get bought and sold, and it's really hard to actually figure out, is it good to buy the Springfield High Point, or are we still not buying Springfield because of that thing that happened one time? That's a really tough one. Oh, sorry,
Springfield
High
High
Power.
Point.
Ah,
I know it doesn't exist, but I want one.
I make this mistake on a relatively regular basis.
Sorry, go on.
I think from the perspective of myself, I'm probably the newest person to the modern day gun culture, I think, out of everybody here. Just 3 or 4 years ago, I was one paycheck away. This is back when I was making bad financial decisions, as a young person in the military who had more money than he ever really knew what to do. I was one paycheck away from signing up for the NRA just a couple of years ago, because I didn't know better. I didn't know anything. I'm like, yeah, I like
Yeah.
guns. The NRA says they like guns, and I didn't look at the history of the verbiage that some people and companies have used, like with sporting rifles, and it's about hunting, and that seeing that narrative being pushed, I didn't think too much of it until I was introduced to, I think it was GPC at the time.
Mm.
And it was kind of a rabbit hole from there. And I started to be like, yeah, why are we even arguing about hunting? This was never about hunting. The discussion should not be about hunting. We should not be talking about sporting rifles or hunting rifle. That's not the verbiage we should be using, because it's irrelevant. We're arguing things that, sure, I'm not saying hunting and sporting doesn't matter. I'm saying for the sake of gun rights and individual rights and liberty, that discussion is irrelevant. The purpose of firearms ownership and those inherent rights is to protect those inherent rights, to protect yourself, your family, your liberty, and that narrative that kind of drifted from that to sporting and hunting. I didn't think anything of it.
Yeah. It's easy to say, like, look, if we want to bring people into this culture, hunting is a great way to do it. But what was actually happening was the Second Amendment is about overthrowing governments. So
Hell yeah, Isaac.
let's make the conversation
Yes.
be about hunting.
Fuck
That
yes.
way, we don't have to like really get down to brass tacks with the Second Amendment. And so like, there's a good faith way to use. Basically, it goes down to: are you using hunting as an on ramp to talk about the Second Amendment? Are you using hunting as an off ramp from the Second Amendment that you're then going to use to take people's guns away later? Is kind of the question in my mind.
Yeah,
I think we can all agree, though, that anytime somebody says the word or a company uses the word modern sporting rifle, a angel loses its wings.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad. But, I do
Yeah.
consider that a cultural win while we're kind of on
Yeah.
that topic, because you rarely see a company saying modern sporting rifle anymore. Like, it's
I've been really impressed. The last SHOT Show, and I don't think I'm going to this one, but the last SHOT Show, I was actually going around and looking at everybody's slogans. And even companies that used to be iffy on this, like Springfield Hellcat, had like a hardcore self-defense and defense of others tagline. Like people were leaning into stuff.
Yeah, you love to see it. And it's that cultural war that we're all winning. We're winning.
Yeah, and I think how we handle that, when companies do that, I think we have to look at it from two different perspectives. From one perspective, they could be kind of like how I was, where, oh, we don't really know too much about it, but we do make and sell guns, and maybe some people that work for us have really strong feelings about it one way or the other, but we're just going to go about it, and then they legitimately make a change. But and then the other side, there's some companies that blow whichever way the money's blowing. And
Mhm.
you don't.
True,
It's hard to
true.
determine what is legitimate and what is
Yeah.
not when you're at a level of that size of a company and that amount of influence and power and relevancy.
Yeah, and I think it is good to be not super cynical. I try not to be super cynical, but there's things like Springfield is continuing to make the XD and not the XD 2.0 because it's on the California gun roster. So Californians can keep buying this gun. So they're continuing to import it. And are they doing that simply because California is a big market? Are they doing that because they want Californians to be armed? I don't know. But the end result of this decision is Californians are buying a gun that they can actually buy and actually have, and it's actually better than nothing. So I try not to be super cynical about, they're only in it for the money. There's just a possibility that there are bean counters making money decisions, and there's people, working somewhere in Springfield who are really excited about how many thousand XDs are ending up in the hands of Californians. So I don't know exactly how to handle that. Charitably, but cautiously, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm in with this.
Yeah.
I think that I agree with you. I mean, that's a tough topic.
Yeah, and I do think that we need to be big enough. Our culture desperately wants everything to be binary, especially the non-binary gender people want everything else to be binary.
Yes, we're going there.
It's shocking. The tolerance people are insanely intolerant of certain things, and so everything has to be one way or the other way. And so it's too complicated. Like if you say, "Hey, Wayne LaPierre should not be running the NRA," they're like, "Oh, well, have they done nothing good ever? How dare you?" And then if you point out, like, "Well, there was a NRA lobbyist who probably doesn't want her name mentioned on this podcast, who was awesome and tremendously helpful to Trex and wanted to help us get a thing done." And people are like, "What? Are you saying that while Wayne LaPierre is okay and everything that he does is fine? How dare you?" So there's got to be some room for like actual factual accuracy and understanding here.
Well, we kind of talked with Mike about it last episode. The amount of money in the industry it's crazy, the amount of money that gets passed behind closed doors or even publicly. But I think it's a similar sense when it comes to companies and how we treat them. There's a lot of influential people out there that take a lot of money to push something that maybe they knowingly are being disingenuous about, or maybe they just are uneducated. And it's the same way. I don't know the right way how to treat people like that, because there's people within our own community that took a little bit too long to not support the NRA and some of the things that they're saying anymore. Or maybe they talked about Olight and they didn't know that Olights were just little pocket IEDs, or maybe they did, but they're like, "Hey, this money is good." So I do think that cautiously is, I think cautious
they throw a lot
is
of
the
money at
right
people.
approach. And I try and relate it down to the simplest level that I can, because I'm a simple-minded individual, thinking at a company level and then like an influential person's level and then my level. And I can't think of the right way on how to go about it, because there's so much nuance. And people,
and I will say, Trex is not a big company, but as big as Trex is, we make a lot of mistakes. Stuff falls through the cracks. Like, it would be really easy for me to imagine scenarios in which all of the terrible things that happen in the industry happen honestly by accident. And I know that's not true, but I can also think of ways in which that mistake could have been made honestly by an intern who didn't know this or didn't know that. Like, I see that stuff happening in our own company, ordinarily avoiding stuff like that happening in our own company. And so I want to be cautiously optimistic, if that's the right way to put it.
Dude, this whole adult thing is very difficult. It's very complex. It's very complex.
This whole adult
There's really a whole lot that goes into it. And I know we've touched on this topic before, but I mean, you said it pretty well, Isaac. I'm still right here counting the money that you guys paid me before this podcast to make sure I say nice things.
I get some of that money.
Carry the one.
Yeah, carry the one. I don't know. I think, despite everything, there's certainly a lot of problems that I kind of wanted to bring up. Like the NRA is something that's troublesome to me, and a couple of the other companies that you think of. But I
Yeah.
think overall we're in a good direction. A lot of the big companies that not big, but like I would say influential companies. I think of companies like Badger Ordnance and Noveski and Daniel Defense and
Oh,
Knights
yes.
Armament and LMT. They're going a really good direction. I consider these good companies doing good things. I'm sure somebody's going to hop in and be like, "Well, did you know in the year 2005 that Knights Armament donated?" Who knows, right?
Yeah. Daniel
But
Defense did a thing one time, and I couldn't get their guns out.
No. Let's not talk about
Yeah.
Daniel Defense, potential sponsors of the show. Daniel
Nope,
Defense
nope,
has
nope,
never
nope.
done anything wrong. They are great.
I have a Daniel Defense PDW chambered in 300 blackout, and I have yet to shoot it because it's chambered in 300 blackout. At this point, I now own more 300 blackout guns than ammo.
Friggin'
But
$10
so
a bullet.
embarrassing.
I'll send you some 300 if Lucas can't spare any for you.
Well, no,
Yeah.
I just can't bear to shoot it. It's too
Yeah,
valuable.
I know. But I think that a lot of these big companies are being run by people who get it,
Yeah.
who understand it. Like I talking with these guys and kind of, I guess, seeing it at the ground level, like I see good things. I'm really excited about the direction because, like, actually, I think LMT just stopped making them, but the M203s, like, they were making those and selling those to civilians. That was awesome, because they also made them for the government. They're just like, hey, yeah, here you go. Like, that used to be a thing that back in the day, if you had a government contract, you would not sell that shit to civilians because you made enough money. But they're doing cool things, like companies like B.E. Myers making a civilian version of the mall. There are a lot of good things happening despite all the other stuff. So that's certainly not just me and T-Rex Arms people like doing all that, because that's been a huge cultural shift that's occurred with multiple other really influential individuals. I can't even name all of them. There's so many good guys out there, but it's good. We're in a good place,
Yeah.
Even politically, like, just if you look at the
Yeah.
number of states that have constitutional carry now compared to 10 years ago, the number of states that allow you to hunt after dark, the number of states that allow you to hunt with suppressors, the number of states that have allowed people under 18 to get hunting licenses or under 21 to buy guns. Like, there's some positive cultural movement here that's significant. And again, it started before Grand Thumb and T-Rex Arms were doing anything. So
100%.
we're riding a wave.
Yeah. But you guys are directly influential in the fact that you're helping shape this wave. I'll stand by that.
A lot.
I mean, we all are in our own way, not to,
what's
your word? The self-masturbation.
I think all of us are seeing the work of other people. Like, we're seeing these positive political changes or these positive company changes, and we want to, just keep that momentum going. So,
wasn't there just a thing that came out that said that the support for gun control was like the lowest it had been in like a long time? Yeah.
Like 20 years or something. And it's especially low in young
Kentucky
generations.
ballistics, I'm telling you.
I think like the one yeah, you know what? Like, I'll give that to you. Fucking Kentucky Ballistics, Demolition Ranch, all of them. Fucking video games. Tarkov, all the streamers. What's his name? Ian Crim6, that guy who streams Warzone, I want to say, went out, shot with Lucas, and like went out, got a pair of nods, and got his own night vision, got his own carbine. Now he's constantly like posting about 2A stuff. Like, I don't follow streamers, I don't know, but like, he's got a massive following. He's getting people who otherwise wouldn't be into it. There's all sorts of people, and you two, and T-Rex, and all kinds of people that are just, it's planting that seed, and it's all that matters.
Well, I'll say this, like, I had a bunch of the guys from the Seattle Seahawks come out to shoot at my range, taught them, just showed them some stuff, and they all posted about it. Like, they posted to their verified Instagram accounts, like showing them shooting and stuff, and it was like nothing but support. I'm like, you couldn't have done that like 2008, like a professional sports player post that stuff and people be supportive.
No,
no. It's just, it's changed. Things are going well. It's a good place.
Was DJ Dallas?
Yeah. Oh yes, DJ Dallas.
Yeah, was DJ Dallas one of the Seahawks that went out and shot at your range?
Awesome. Yeah, he's a good shooter.
Yeah.
He was one. Yeah,
I was talking to him last night.
He's been in contact.
Oh no shit, were you?
Yeah, we were talking to him last night.
Now he's really into guns.
We weren't talking about guns. We were talking about football because I'm a sports nerd. But I saw he was following us, and I'm like, why is he following us? And I looked at his page, and I'm like, this guy's into guns, and he's posting about it on his verified social media account. He is the he's the third choice for, he's probably not happy about that, but he is the third choice for the Seattle Seahawks running backs, and that
he's on your fucking team, isn't he?
Yeah, he's on my fantasy team.
Your fantasy.
Did you tell him that?
Yeah, that's how we.
Yeah, he did. It's the first thing.
The first thing I said. I sent him a picture. I'm like, "How you feeling this Sunday, big man?"
Yeah, and like while he's doing this, Mitch just sends me a message.
Yeah, I was kind of fanboying a little bit
Nathan,
because I'm a huge.
You never guess
guy.
who's. But yeah, and I'm like, who the fuck is that?
It's cool. Crazy seeing people. We have streamers. We have athletes that, like you said, in 2008. There's no way they were going to get away with that because they would have been crushed by the media.
Oh, dude. Destroyed. Absolutely destroyed, man.
Big white pill is. It's getting a little better every day.
I want to say, just because we're talking about DJ, he when he brought two other guys out with him, and so we all took a photo together, and I didn't post it because I look like I'm like 5'2" next to him. I look like the tiniest human being to have ever existed next to all these professional football players. It was like the most. I felt like a tiny person next to all these guys.
I was at a football game in Hawaii one time, the Hula Bowl, which is a college game, but it was very much like that. I'm 6'2", like I'm not small.
You're a tall guy.
I'd get into the elevator and I'd look down at all these Japanese tourists who are like waist height. Then I'd turn to my other side and I'd look up at all these football players in the elevator with me. They were like 8 feet tall, and I'd be like, yeah.
Jeez. That's how life goes.
So moving forward with gun culture, what do you think the future of it looks like, and how are we going to get there and kind of get new people involved and bring the same people that maybe are in 1.0 or 2.0? How do we start bringing people and kind of advancing and evolving?
Okay, so I have my ideas for this. And they don't really so much involve me as they involve a younger generation, right? Because I'm ultimately going to kind of appeal to who I appeal to, and I'll keep trying to broaden that. And
Mike, how old are you?
I'm 35.
Oh shit. Okay, I feel a little less old now.
Okay, yeah, but like we think about like all the stuff that people do right now that I think is cringy, right? I think TikTok is cringy. I think dancing on TikTok is cringy, and I think
it is.
It is cringy, right? Or
yes.
I think a lot of this stuff that this newer generation does is cringy, but who doesn't think it's cringy is everyone 16, 17 and younger who are totally into this. And this is somewhere that we're there's gaps, right? And so there's going to have to be someone who fills that in some meaningful way, who takes up that, who is good at that, and who can make it educational and bring more people into firearms. So right now you got people like like I talked about, like Demo Ranch, right? They watch his videos because he appeals to that demographic with the way he does his videos. There's gonna have to be somebody who's going to fill in that gap in TikTok, and that might be a little bit more difficult because the app's kind of difficult to work with. But these are gaps that we're working with when it comes to social media that I think have yet to be addressed and will eventually be addressed by this upcoming generation. I'm interested to see what happens, and then I can talk shit on them for dancing and cringy TikToks.
I think it's I think there's different stages. Like, I think that what's happening is we're seeing guys, they have a particular goal or image that they want to pursue, and so they see guns in video games, they see guns in movies, they see celebrities and really popular YouTube channels doing cool stuff with guns, and guns get cool, so they get guns. And then they're like, what's next after guns? Oh yeah, and then they move into maybe some other gear, maybe some tactics, some CQB stuff. But then I think what happens is Garand moves into the next stage, which is the building civilization from an axe series of videos, which I'm waiting for. It's so great. I did hear that part of the podcast, and I was like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, you're like, let's do it. Let's start
build
smelting
civilization.
Let's start smelting ores. I'm ready.
Yeah. So, but I think that there's going to be different stages of guys, and some people are going to get into the owning guns and doing stuff with night vision goggles, and then they're like, yeah, this is cool now, and it's taking up all of my free time, and this is kind of like where I plateau. And then there's other people who are like, no, I want to be dangerous and effective in situations where I need radios. And I want to know how to live in the woods, and I want to know how to make stuff with an axe. Yeah. And they take it to that next level, which I really feel like is, the next level above just being able to, help people in actual combat, and then there's help people in everything surrounding actual combat, and then there's helping people in scenarios where civilization is gone and you're rebuilding it with an axe.
Yeah.
Yes.
How do I even drink water? What do I drink? Do I drink it from a pond? Will that kill me? I don't know.
Do I bear grills?
Just drink it. It's fine.
Oh yeah, that's good. You know,
If little bugs can live in it, you know it's good.
you're good. You know,
Extra protein.
I almost went on a rant about water. Can I go on a
Go
rant
on a rant about
Oh,
water.
yeah.
Please.
Okay. So I failed a solo survival exercise when I was going through the pipeline, and so at the very end of the pipeline, I had to go through it again, and they were like, "This is an opportunity. I never got to, we don't get to camp out anymore, so you get to camp out on your own. This is super cool." And it was pretty much I got a knife, a piece of tissue paper with one match, and they were like, "Don't let the fire go out for the week you're out there, and build a shelter and impress us." And I was like, "Well, shit, this is really daunting." So I ended up, keeping that amount of wood to keep the fire going. Anyhow, I digress. But there was this huge meadow next to me with like this stream running through it, and I was high up in the mountains, high up there, and I was like, "Fresh, pure mountain water. I will grow strong off of you, and the minerals in you, imbued within you." So I was like putting my face into the water and like sucking straight from the stream, and because I was like, "Oh, I'm fine. I don't want to iodine this water because I'm a little superstitious about putting a bunch of iodine in my water. I don't know. It can't be that good for you." But yeah, so I was just drinking this straight from the source. And I'm like, how could this not be pure? It is purified by the mountain. And then about halfway through, they came in. They're like, "Hey, we got to move you, Forest Service, blah, blah, blah. So we got to move you up the road." So they moved me up the road about a mile up from where about 400 meters up from where my first camp was. And they put me in this new area. And they're like, "Okay, go do it again." And so I got out there, and there was another meadow just upstream from where I just been drinking from, and it was there was about 1,000 cows just shitting directly into the water right there. So it is incredible. I didn't get sick, but I've always really changed my tune on
iodine is so cheap.
Purify all of
so
your
cheap.
water. Trust nothing. Trust no one, not even yourself.
When I was young, my father, who I should have realized was definitely not a wildlife, survival expert by any means, told me like, "Hey, have you ever stuck out in the woods?" I don't know why he told me. I don't remember how we were talking about it, but I remembered this for the longest time. He told me when I was a little kid. He's like, "If you're ever out stuck in the woods and you're lost, don't just drink any water. Make sure that it's moving water. And if it's white, so like when it's hitting like rapids, it's okay to drink that." And that stuck with me. I'm like, "Yep, got it. Cool.
Good to go."
Years later,
narrator later.
Years later, I don't remember if it was you. It was somewhere in the Baltic states. We were in the woods. What's it called? Froze. What are those big things of water called?
Wait. Say that one more time.
What the fuck is it called? The water buffalo. Our water buffalo froze. So we didn't have any water. And we were really thirsty, and we're like, and some people were like, "Oh, we'll just wait. There's some privates that are going to go in there and pound it with a stick until, it's not frozen anymore." And I was like, "Well, we're kind of near a stream, and there's some rapids over it." And I'm like, "Oh, let me go fill up my Camelback." I got dysentery.
Hey, you love to see it.
I got dysentery. And I
it
remember
could have been worse. There is so much Soviet pollution still in that water supply. Could have been a lot worse.
Could have been anything. And I was so confused. I'm like, what? I remember thinking, I'm like, why am I shitting my brains out? Like, what is going on? I'm throwing up. I feel awful. And then I'm like, my dad told me this water is fine. And I called him. I'm like, "Look, when did you learn this? Who taught you this?
Purify your fucking water."
And I told him, I got dysentery.
This comes to mind. This is totally unrelated to gun culture and everything else. But Mike has made me have 2 White Claws. Made me. He is here with a gun pointed at my head. Yes, he's a bad influence. I'm encouraging
we
haven't done that yet.
alcoholism.
Perhaps soon after I schizo post.
When are you going to make fun of fat people?
No one. no one can see the chat, but it's been fun.
He's like visibly
my mind
uncomfortable.
jumps to many years ago when I was a wee lad. 15, 16. This is 15 years ago. And my dad makes some sticky rice. Just it's been in the fridge for a little while, so by made I mean he puts it in the microwave. and just goes, "Oh yeah, food will keep for a little while." And this has nothing to do with guns, nothing to do with purification, nothing to do with 2A, nothing to do with anything. So I've been just kind of going on. And I eat the sticky rice and just dinner, hanging out with my dad, and then I just start to vomit, and I vomit and I vomit and I vomit for maybe 3 or 4 hours, and my mom comes home and I'm just tears in my eyes, just on the floor in the bathroom, just surrounded by the contents of my stomach, and I go, "Dad, you killed me. You killed me. What did you feed me?" And he looks at me and he goes, like, "Toughen up. It wasn't the food." Like, "No, it's fine. You're being a wimp. Get over it." And then
totally.
The fucking catharsis of this. As soon as I'm over it and I stop throwing up, he comes into the bathroom and he just starts barfing as well. I couldn't eat sticky rice for about a decade. I had it for the first time, a couple years ago. But it made me nauseous. The human brain holds on to those things. If you make yourself sick with something, it'll hold on to it for a long fucking time. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, like how I hold on to it's okay to drink white water.
Oh, white water. That is amazing. That's my best advice I've ever heard.
Thanks, Dad.
Oh, man. What... So do you think are we entering an era now of fieldcraft and bushcraft along with weapons? Are we going to like the bushman with the rifle and the trees and the mountains, like the rifle behind every blade of grass? Is that what we're returning into?
I kind of hope so, yeah.
We were talking about that, and I hope so. Yeah, I really hope so. We're not there yet. It's like maybe that's a gun culture 3.5 kind of thing. But I want us to get there. I want there to be a rifle behind every blade of grass. I want the modern Minuteman concept to come back.
You love it. You love to see it.
Yeah.
Well, I love to. And more than just the combat capability, but that rebuilding civilization with an axe. That thing where it's like, why would I be self-reliant when it comes to defense of my life? It's like, cool, excellent. I back you 100%. Now, are there any other areas where you would like to be self-reliant? We would like to help you be self-reliant in many areas.
Well, it's natural, right? It's like, okay, I can defend myself. I can defend my family against, whatever it might be. What somebody trying to take away my freedom, somebody trying to take away my natural rights. But I do that, and the consequence of that is that civilization is destroyed. And can I still do the same thing, defend my family against Mother Nature herself? Mm-hmm. Can I keep my family alive? And that's something you should be able to do. I think some things I'm going to be talking about in the future, and I'll talk to you offline about this also, Isaac, because it's a really interesting topic. Is like, what's the timeline with which you can live in the woods before you die?
Yeah.
Like how long can you live in the woods before you physically pass away? So if I were to put you out there with a knife and a tissue paper, like how long? And for a lot of people, they just don't know, and so it should be indefinite, right? It should be that you know the correct steps to take in order to begin to get water, begin to cultivate the land, begin to grow, begin to domesticate animals, and live and recreate civilization. But this has been lost, right? I used to tell people when I teach SEER, I'm like, what I'm about to teach you is not like wazoo information. I'm teaching you what a child used to know in 1820.
Yeah.
But these skills are no longer necessary for survival, so we've lost them. So all we're going to do is get you to the level of about a 8-year-old in circa 1820, and then from there, there's a billion more skills you still need to learn. But think about a kid in 1820. You're like, hey, you need to cook this frog leg that this frog that you caught. The kid's going to know how to start a fire and cook a frog.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, there's these stories of, wagon trains going to Oregon, parents die, small children make it all the way to Oregon with all the stuff and the animals and everything. Like it's, this happened, not all the time, but with remarkable regularity.
Yeah. And it's just a consequence of our modern living, right? We're in a really good place. The food is plentiful, and we're able to diversify and pursue different, things like drink White Claws, and life's good. But it's that innate knowledge that really interests me. I think it's so interesting that up until maybe 100 years ago, humans knew a lot more about living indefinitely without a Walgreens or a Walmart or a Albertsons, right down the street.
Well, a wise man once said, The Industrial Revolution and its consequences have been disastrous for the human race. Sorry, continue. Just once, I always TED post.
I am kind of interested about. You have to. I'm curious about your guys' thought process on how you guys decide what is relevant information to be teaching moving forward. Because for me, I'm a simple dude. I think of if I was doing, CQB with my squad and I'm up on the rails and I'm looking down on them like, all right, go through the house. And then they finish, they do their ups, 1 up, 2 up, 3 up, 4 up. All right, room clear. I say, okay, now what? And they all just kind of look around and I'm like, now what? You cleared the house. You killed all the bad guys. Now what? And that's how I kind of think when we're making guides. I'm like, okay, we did that cool stuff. Maybe we did a guide on the cool stuff. Now what? Or we're planning to go do this thing. Well, we don't just, time warp and end up in front of the building. Now what? And that's kind of how my brain works when I think of what I need to be talking about and what my kind of responsibility is. I'm curious for, the folks over at Trex and, kind of with your recce videos, what does that look like for you? How do you determine, how we move forward and what you're going to put out information wise?
It's somewhat haphazard. Mike, why don't you go first while I try to figure out what we do?
Yeah, you're good. So I think the most important thing that was ever told to me was by a guy named Foster Huntington. If you guys are familiar with him, loves guns. Just this hippie, lives out in Washington, has like a huge treehouse fort. It's awesome. This guy's incredible.
What's his username? Just for everyone who's listening, and also me.
No, he's amazing, dude. You should definitely follow him. He's at Foster Hunting. Yeah. Foster Hunting. He has like 1 million followers or something like that. But anyhow, he is big into natural movement, all that type of stuff, and living off the land. But beyond that, he's really good at social media and that type of thing. One thing that he always told me was that you got to be true to yourself, right? If you start placating the fans, if you start doing only what fans want, then you're not what they came there for, right? They came there for you, not for them. So you need to always do what's interesting to you. So I hate to say it, but when it comes to my content, I do what I think is cool, what I think is interesting, because I think it's infectious. If people see me that I'm passionate about a topic and that I'm really invested in it, that's going to be so much more authentic to them than if I'm, like talking about Alec Baldwin, an hour after it occurred, because that's what's hugely popular right now, versus me going on and on about recreating civilization with an axe, because I just freaking love that kind of topic, So I think the biggest thing is to be true to yourself. Be true to yourself and follow what feels good to you, and then that's pretty much what I end up kind of pursuing as far as my video topics. I know it seems super unscientific, and I'm sure there's probably a better way to handle it, but I think fuck them. But I think that enthusiasm is what's going to draw people in and why they came in the first place.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, no, I think everybody. So we have a number of people creating content at Trex. We have the customer service team. They're solving people's problems, but they also are kind of directing people. There's a huge amount of our customer service isn't, hey, my holster break, how fix holster. Most of it is actually like, hey, what laser should I get? Or hey, what flashlight should I get? And sometimes it's stuff like, it is, as Mitch said, the now what? Like, all right, I bought everything that you
this
sell
is something
on
I
your
kind of
website,
wanted to
now
get
what?
into earlier, but I hadn't loosened up enough,
Isaac.
and I didn't want to interrupt, as I'm so bad for, and we get many messages about just like, why is that Nathan guy fucking interrupting everyone? It's fuck you, that's why. What I think too, and this is kind of related to what you just said, Isaac, people don't like being uncomfortable anymore. People don't like challenging themselves in a way that isn't just, I missed a few A-zone hits in a flat range. It's like people don't like going out into the woods and spending some time and actually, being cold, being wet, having to, filter their own water, lighting their own fires, living in the woods for a little while, or anything else. People don't like being uncomfortable. And it's, it's innate human nature. I can't really fault them for it, but we have to get over it. We genuinely do.
Yeah. And I think that's, and kind of going back to what you were saying about creating content for, what drives the maximum number of eyeballs, what drives the maximum engagement on your comment section, whatever. I also have sort of come to the realization is that not all eyeballs are created equal. Like there's people watching content who don't learn anything. And I actually really enjoy the opportunity to like make, maybe make less successful content eyeball wise that maybe is more successful at actually helping people. And so I've kind of changed my thinking a little bit. Like as we have developed different types of content and done different things, like I feel like the customer service guys are actually getting the best direct personal help track record of anybody in Trex, even though the emails that they send people are often personalized, or the newsletters that go out, or the guides they put up on the website. They don't get the same kind of eyeballs as the YouTube videos, but they're like direct and helpful. That I think is really helpful because we're not monetized on YouTube. So getting a gazillion eyeballs in a video is cool, but it doesn't actually, there's no value to it.
Fair.
But if we could, help somebody with an issue or move somebody in a direction that they need to go, or, solve a problem for somebody, if you can do that to 5 or 10 people in a video, that's amazing. And if that video also gets 10 million views, that's cool too. But hopefully your hit rate, your actual teaching value, or whatever we want to call this, this ratio is high. And I think that if you stick to the stuff that you're really passionate about and interested in, then people really sense that they understand that you're being genuine. And like, I know that there's a bunch of people who watch Garand because he's ridiculously good looking and he always has cool guns.
True.
And his videos
True.
The production
All
value
these
is
things are
excellent. And I would imagine that the Rebuilding Civilization from Scratch video series would get fewer eyeballs, but I bet you would help more people. Not to say that
100%.
the cool gun videos aren't an on-ramp for Second Amendment stuff, but I'm sure that there's a bunch of guys like me who have been watching your videos for years, and you're like, all right, he's going to shoot another cool gun, and it's going to be cool. But like, when is he going to start rebuilding civilization with an axe?
That's what I'm here for. Give me that axe. Give me that axe right now. Well, I mean, it's all about that good balance of content, right? You got to appeal to a lot of different people, and that's kind of what we're going for right now. But 100%, like, you got to be. What do I say to people? It's going to sound super stupid. I'm going to hate myself as soon as I say it. With great power comes great responsibility, right? With a bunch of followers, so comes the responsibility to both put out factual and good information, and to also balance the type of content you put out with content that's going to benefit everyone, right? Not just yourself. And so that is actually what surprised me, Isaac, because I did not think that anybody was going to watch my video on Recce, because forever people have been asking me to do a Recce video, like talk about it and start getting into a video series about SEER and that type of stuff. And whenever I do kit setup videos kind of similar to it, it gets like no views. And I'm like, it's more of a passion project, which is fine. But when I decided to make it, I was like, okay, this is fine. These videos will be our worst videos of the the 10 video metric you see and all that kind of stuff. So YouTube gives you a metric for every 10 videos and lets you know how they're doing. So I'm like, I'm sure it'll be 10 out of 10, just terrible. That's okay. But when I released it, it ended up garnering 1 million views in about 2 weeks, and I was like, well, I guess people are actually, I guess as you would say, Isaac, the needle's moving in this direction, and I don't know what's causing it specifically. I couldn't say, but I'm here for it, man. I love to see it because I think it's an incredibly valuable topic.
Oh my God.
And don't you worry, I will make a video entitled "Starting Civilization with an Axe."
That's awesome.
The first thing you make is a bench, just so everyone knows, because you need to be able to sit and rest. That's a rule.
Have you seen? There's a YouTube channel of a guy in Russia. He's actually a lawyer, and his YouTube channel is just him going off into the Russian wilderness and building a log cabin, and then workbench, and then tools and stuff like that.
And then does the government come and take them all?
He's far enough in the woods that they don't know.
That's incredible. That's really cool. It is such a lost skill. How cool is it watching him do that?
Yeah, and I feel relatively inadequate because my kids think that I can do anything, and I'm reading them my side of the mountain, and I'm showing them videos of guys building stuff, and they're like, well, Dad can do that too. It's like, better learn how.
Think about something as simple. Well, not simple, but think about building a log cabin. Like you say simple, but
took forever.
Have you guys felled a tree before?
Yes.
With an axe?
Absolutely no fucking idea. I used an axe and it fell over.
So do you know the DBH of that tree?
Yeah.
Like how thick it was? It fell over eventually. Well, so there's a huge technique to cutting down a tree. If you don't know, like there's a specific type of cut that you do to cause which way it's going to fall.
Oh yeah,
There's
yeah, the
there's a
wedge
Yep.
shape.
So the reverse wedge on both sides in order to make it fall a certain direction. Once you've felled it, of course, there's different ways to utilize all the different parts of the branch. Like there's a lot to even felling a tree, and then you get on top of that, you're like, all right, I'm gonna make a house. It's like, okay, how do I notch this out? Okay, beyond that, then you got to use the mud to create the stucco between the logs to seal it up. Like it is immensely complex, and like you think of, oh, I'm gonna build a log cabin, no problem. But holy crap, is there a lot that goes into it?
You've got to check out a YouTube channel called Axe and Anvil.
Axe and Anvil.
Okay.
And then the next time you come and visit, we're going to go out and we're going to visit this guy. He's a real good friend of mine. I actually helped him build his log cabin. I did this much work, and it almost killed me.
See, look at that. You have built a log cabin. That's incredible.
That's amazing.
You have got to come visit this guy. So he is an 18th century blacksmith, and he's homesteading and he's doing stuff. It is
so cool.
Awesome. And he's not just a blacksmith, like he's a woodsman. Like he knows not just how you cut down trees and use them and build log cabins with them, but like, yeah, we're he's on his grandparents' land, and he's like, yeah, this is how we take care of the forest, so that we're going to use these trees later, and this is how we've cleared out this forest, so that the different varieties of trees will be the straightest and the biggest and the healthiest and the most useful for making houses or whatever.
That's amazing.
And, like, he is fascinated with getting back this old knowledge, and so next time you come out to Tennessee, don't hang out with the high-speed Trex guys. Let's go back to the 1800s and let's do some blacksmithing and some woodcraft. And every time I hang out with Jordan, we're like trapping or shooting. He has some very he's got some awesome content that I hope is coming out very soon. But he's building not flintlock, but percussion cap rifles and doing black powder reloading. He is the coolest guy. And maybe that's what gun culture 4.0 looks like. It looks like 1835.
I love that.
Honestly, if the peak tactical kit is me looking like Daniel Day-Lewis in Last on the Mohicans, I am totally okay with that. I am totally okay with that. You bring up a really good point. Being a woodsman, right? Yeah. That's a term you hear a lot when it comes to like seer and that type of stuff. I've encountered, I would say, like a woodsman once. And it's the only creepy thing that ever happened to me in the woods. But we were out there teaching survival, and one day we came back to our cabin, or not our cabin. We had like a little CP, little command post set up, and somebody had put these figurines that looked like all of us with like the moss to make our hair and everything, like each of us in our sleeping bags and stuff. So we thought it was one of our guys fucking with us, but we ended up holding some guys back because whoever this was kept messing with us, and eventually we found his tracks and we caught him. And so me and my buddy found his tracks, and we could see him barely disappearing into the woods, and we're like, oh, I'm gonna catch this man, like we're gonna get him, and I don't know what we're gonna do, we're gonna get him. But at that point I was a pretty seasoned I will say woodsman, and I could move through the forest pretty fast. But when we started chasing after this guy was both barefoot and ran with such speed through thick, dense forest, of which I could not even comprehend. Near a dead sprint, just leaping branches and ducking under them, and quickly outpaced us within maybe 10 seconds. Just gone.
Was he?
And I only
military? Was he a civvy? Just a random guy fucking with you?
Get this. So I was like, who the fuck was that? So a couple days later, I was on this hillside, and I saw movement on another like mountainside, like a solid distance away. So I pulled a binocs, glass the area, and sure enough, I see this dude, like full furs, moss attached to him for camouflage, just stalking a deer with a percussion rifle. And I was like, that was that guy, just some guy living off grid, dude. Just a true woodsman right there. And I was like, how impressive was that? And I don't know, I guess we just got there and he thought he'd have fun and just fuck with us. I respect it.
Yeah.
I respect it very much. But that's super cool when you think about it. Like, think about the skills that man has to like, people don't even think of movement, but like movement through a forest at that speed takes so much experience and so much knowledge this guy could tell us about how to walk and how to disappear. I just wish I could talk to the guy. But no way he'd ever talk to me being in the military when I was, when I'd spotted him, and he was so far away. But so cool.
When it comes to putting out that information as well, I do think that needle is getting pushed, like you said. Because looking at our own analytics, I did this a little bit before. Our CQB guide, which we put out before when we were at like 40,000 followers, it has and is still to this day our most popular post. It has like 19,000.
That was a great guide, by the way.
Thank you.
Really good guide.
Orion Concepts did that. But then we look at
Orion Training Group. Orion Concepts.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're great guys. I'm hopefully gonna.
Yeah, Jared's
once I'm out of the military, I'm planning on teaching some survival courses through them.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, they're great guys.
But then we look at a post that we did, a couple weeks ago when we had more of a following, and it was, introduction to general principles of survival. It gets like 7,500. So the engagement is less, but the value, there's value in CQB, don't get me wrong. The value, I think, it's there, and the people that want it are getting it. And I think when we do our SEER guide, not just because it's Garand Thumb that's doing it, if we just completely took your name out of it and took away like, hey, you're the one that helped us with it, I think it would do significantly, better than, just even a couple months ago, because I think right now we're in a transition phase where that needle, well, it's starting to move. It's starting to snowball and gain more momentum and more momentum and more momentum to the point where I think you can put out, a recce video, and it's going to get similar engagement as we move down the road, because people are starting to get over that initial hype about small unit tactics to, well, I need to also survive to do the small unit tactics, and I
just want to see. I just want to see me and Isaac in a naked and afraid type video on Garand Thumb.
Sounds
unpleasant. What video on Garand Thumb?
Naked and afraid.
You need to get out of your comfort zone, Isaac.
We need to start with zero clothes.
No, it's true. When he were talking earlier, Nathan, about like people don't want to do things that are unpleasant, I was like, it's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
Well,
like when Mike was talking earlier about like come out to Washington, do some survival stuff, I was like, that sounds awesome, and just the worst.
Mike, is that like a thing you would do? Would you go camping with folks?
Man.
Do
you get naked while you do
Washington?
Yeah, 100%. Actually, there's actually a story to that, but
really,
100%, man. So like we are starting survival class. So once I get out, we'll be teaching these courses. Everyone can sign up. We'll be doing them through a bunch of different people. I'll have you guys can come out. Not Nathan, no, just kidding. And we'll go through it. I'll teach all the pertinent stuff, and we'll do anywhere from like a 2-day to a 2-week course. It should be a good time.
I've been getting,
but
sorry, go on.
You want to know about getting naked?
I mean, no, but yes.
You got to sleep naked in your sleeping bag, maximum worth.
So, man. I talk about that with guys all the time. So, like, do you sleep naked? Do you sleep naked in your bag?
In my bag, if it's cold, absolutely.
Do you really?
Yep.
You don't keep any underwear on?
I'll keep my silkies sometimes.
Okay.
But
are you like a sweaty balls type guy?
If I don't have my silkies, I will get naked in my bag.
Have I been doing this wrong the entire time?
Okay, so it depends completely on your body, what you sleep in. So it also depends on your bag. So there's a bunch of different ways to do it. None of them are specifically wrong. Oh, well, there is a wrong way. Like if you sleep in everything, like with a insulated bag, you're going to sweat and die. Yeah. But generally, you just want to make sure that you're not sweating too much in your sleep, because you're losing water. And like the big thing with survival is you want to ration your sweat, not your water. So the idea is you should always be drinking water, but if you can prevent yourself from sweating, that's really good, because sweat is losing a lot of fluid from your body. So, during the night, if you're sweating all night because you have too many layers on, that's bad. That's a lot of water lost. That's going to be that much more difficult to regain in either a survival or a reconnoitering type situation. So you just want to be cognizant of that. And everybody's different. Like I sleep pretty warm, so I tend to get down pretty close to naked too. If you're not a sweater, then maybe you wear more.
Yeah, I'm not a big sweater, so.
Yeah, with those bags too, people think, I'm going to get a bag rated for like -20 degree weather and I'm going to be toasty. No, that's -20 degree survival. That's not.
Yeah.
And people seem to forget that. I'll go out with friends and they'll be like, "I'm so cold, dude. Like I have this bag, it's not working," and I'm like, "Oh, it's working. You're surviving. It's
Yeah,
not.
you're
It's
not
not.
dead.
You're supposed to be in your own little inferno in negative 20-degree weather. You're surviving. It's survival rating."
Yeah.
Oh man, it's so true though. Now, okay, so talking about getting naked, we used for my survival guys out there, the whole man in the creek thing, right? So if you in a like winter environment, if you plunge through the ice and you fall into the water and you get out of that water, it's like how fast are you going to die in like a situation where it's like say 10 degrees Fahrenheit?
Pretty
Pretty
quick.
quick. Yeah, pretty quick. So what do you do is the question.
You roll in the light, fluffy snow, and then you're
You'll-
fine.
yeah, right. There's a lot of different ways, and generally the idea is that you got to move, right? But also, to some extent or another, stripping down and getting a fire going is not a bad way to do it. To be honest, Bear Grylls kind of had it right. I don't know. Survival's so weird, man. Staying
I
warm.
really am just completely. I haven't done anything in this area since I lived in New Zealand, which doesn't even count because New Zealand is just ridiculously easy mode. Like I did
New
a
Zealand
survival thing in
is
New Zealand, and I just was like, well, there's nothing here that can eat me, and the water is perfectly good to drink, and it's not going to get cold. So I just lay down under a fern and slept that night, and then woke up in the morning and went about and I was like, yeah, I survived. I passed the course. What now?
You know how like in the Bible it talks about how the the Garden of Eden they could just live and just not have to do anything and they're just fine. That's New Zealand, to be honest. That
Pretty
like
much. Yeah.
you just live, you're okay. Like you don't really have to do much.
It's like
It's like
Yeah.
go to sleep, young Isaac. You're okay.
Yeah. Roll over, drink out of the stream. It hasn't been destroyed by pesticides yet, so
Yeah,
we're all
you're
good.
good to go.
Only thing you have to worry about there is
sorry.
fucking government.
Yeah, that escalated quickly.
Yeah.
At least you can own a suppressor easily.
It's true. I mean, it was just common courtesy to have a suppressor on your gun, and it was just the thing that every rifle came with at a gun store. Because, like, yeah, of course you're going to want to run a suppressor. Like, duh.
I was actually talking to my wife about this because she was asking about suppressors, and I was like, in most other countries where you can own a weapon, suppressors are not really so much a regulated item. Like even in England, and it's just considered a common courtesy. Like you just have a suppressor. That's very nice. It's very polite of you, but here it is. You did a whole video on this. Actually, I want to know the history of that. Why are suppressors? Why did they become legal? Did that? What precipitated that?
To be honest, nobody really knows exactly. Like the lore is that there was a lot of poaching going on during the Great Depression.
Yeah,
but I don't know that actually was something that people worried about because it wasn't anything that in none of my research. No one talks about suppressors. They're just on the NFA, and I don't know why they're there. And people don't debate them. They just debate the handguns and the shotguns.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I've heard a number of people throw out the poaching thing. Like poachers are using suppressors to hunt animals because the Great Depression is happening and nobody has food. I don't know.
You got to wonder if when were suppressors invented? Was it
early 1900s? Hiram Maxim, I think. Yeah.
Because he came out with his silencer or whatever. And that was like early 1900s, and like 20 years later, were they even were there enough out there for this to be a problem?
I don't know.
You gotta wonder.
I mean, they're relatively simple to make if you want to make them, but there's definitely like these awesome ads that were probably in Popular Mechanics where it's like, put a suppressor on your 22, build an indoor shooting range, good for Christmas, long winter activity. It's just like, things were different then.
Yeah, you love it. You love to see it, man. Hopefully we can get back to that point, right?
Yeah.
Maybe one day. Maybe
we know
if
a little
gun
bit more
culture
about
4.0
lead.
is,
Well, yeah, lead was. That's a good point.
We know enough about lead now that I'd probably not do it indoors. But maybe we come up with different propellants, and maybe we shoot different bullets indoors. Like my indoor shooting range, plastic bullets only.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Are you talking like those plastic German rounds for the G3 and stuff, or what exactly?
Oh, I was actually thinking of there are some plastic training rounds.
Yeah, the chalk
that
rounds.
I think they're for indoor range, and for a while Israel was actually using them for CQB stuff because
UTMs?
No, they were just a plastic bullet, and the whole point of the plastic bullet is it's very fragile, so it does not make it through barriers, so you can use it more safely in indoor shooting ranges. But it comes out of the gun at just an insane speed, and so if it actually hits a human, very effective. And so there were Israeli counter-terror units are actually using these inside of buildings because they totally work, and they don't go through walls. So that's what they were doing for a while. And then
That makes sense, actually.
maybe they're still doing it, but that was sort of like this thing where like the dirty Israelis using plastic bullets because they're so dangerous. It's like, well, actually, they're training bullets, and the training company doesn't like it.
You know,
it's supposed to be safe.
When I think of you, Isaac, I think of you probably like I just imagine at some point you played Fallout New Vegas and had that shotgun reloader perk where you can make those different weird rounds, and you watched that and you just quietly shut down your like computer after seeing that happen and just went into your garage and just began to tinker. That's the type of person I feel you are. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, it is true. I haven't played that one, but it is true that I often will, read a book or watch a movie or play a game, and I'll see some fictional thing, and I'll be like, huh, is that really dumb? Or is it really brilliant? Or could that really work?
And the scary thing is you have the resources now and the expertise to try it.
Yeah.
So scary.
When are we going to get the whoever that prosecutor was in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, the exploding bullets?
Oh my god!
Oh man,
why don't we
he
get
had
him
such
on
a
the
brilliant
podcast?
idea. Exploding bullets.
Let's like all four of us. Let's just get
just
him.
Just
him.
Oh, actually, I have a question for. Well, I guess it's for all of you, but it's specifically for Mike, because I remember early on, and he mentioned this in the last podcast, Magpul training videos.
Yeah.
Tremendously influential in the culture. Hugely important for me, and obviously very important for you. And then Travis Haley, people start talking about it. You start tagging Travis Haley. He starts talking to you, and then you actually get to meet him.
Yeah.
Who else do you want to meet? Like, who would you like to do stuff with or hang out with in the industry?
In the industry or just in general?
Well, at this point, you could probably do whatever you want in the industry, but maybe go wider.
I've been very lucky. I've gotten to meet a lot of people in the industry. I can't think of anybody I really haven't met in the industry.
Have you met Ian from Forgotten Weapons?
Yeah, I have actually. We've talked on the phone and stuff. He's a really nice guy.
Yeah, I just want to talk to the guy. He just seems like an interesting dude.
He's hilarious. When we were at the Heckler and Koch party during SHOT Show, he showed up in like the formal kilt wear in Scotland. It was awesome. It was such a power move, dude. I respected it so much.
I want to be his best friend.
He's a funny guy. I can't think of. I've met all the cool guys, or that sounds bad. Somebody like I haven't met. I feel like I'm talking myself into a hole right now. I need to stop.
There's some cool guy out there that hasn't met you, and he's like, "Oh."
Here's what I know. He's like, "Damn it." Here's what I really want to do. It's going to sound so cliche, but I really, really want to get on Joe Rogan. 100%.
Yes.
I know it's so cliche, dude. But
Joe Rogan, inferior
like,
podcast. Sorry, continue.
You're right. Yeah, fuck Joe Rogan. But no, like you see guys like Coleon Noir in them, and Coleon Noir speaks so intelligently on those videos, so it is kind of worrisome to me. I think I just speak horribly and just swear too much, and he'd probably just cancel it. But I don't know. I think it'd be. I'd love to get like. My goal would be like I want like me and Lucas on there and just like tag team talking about gun culture. God, that would be so cool.
That would be.
Well, I think it would be fascinating to have you on there talking about SEER stuff, because obviously he's had other special forces dudes talking about combat, and he has had some people on talking about guns. But I think that he personally would be fascinated. Being he's not a real doctor, of course. We should always, every time we talk about Joe Rogan, we got to point out he's not a real doctor.
Oh, of course not. Yeah, not a real doctor.
I think he'd be fascinated by a lot of the survival stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point right there. That's my avenue. That's what I'm going through. And then midway through the podcast, I'll just say, fuck the ATF.
Yes. Holding you to it. Holding you fucking to it.
What about you, Isaac?
Yeah, I was going to turn that question to him.
I actually don't know. So I have met Ian, and he seems super nice and is incredibly knowledgeable. Actually, some of the stuff that I would like to do doesn't even involve me. Like, I would love to get my friend Jordan, who runs Axe and Anvil, to hang out with Ian McCollum and let them talk ancient weapons for a couple hours.
God.
I would not say anything. I would just watch.
8mm
It would be
label.
awesome. Well, and even earlier, like, because I know that Ian has the capability of going real early. And Jordan, in addition to shooting all these black powder weapons and making them, he also was on an artillery team. So with Confederate reenactors and Civil War and Revolutionary War reenactors, you have this sliding scale of guys who just want to wear the uniform, show up to reenact, shoot stuff. And then you have guys who are like hardcore. And the artillery guys that are hardcore are amazing because they're actually, they're limited by the fact that it's a reenactment and they can't actually do stuff with canister shot and grape shot. And it's a great disappointment to them. But they're doing stuff by the artillery books of the day and like doing the math as if they were shooting real stuff. And then they put in a tiny amount of powder so that they don't destroy the spectators. But that was the kind of artillery guy that Jordan was. So he has all this experience with these things. And I would love to just see him and Ian together talking about this stuff. Because Ian is also a very practical, hands-on guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to just read books about stuff.
Yeah.
He wants to go see it and touch it and take it apart and shoot it.
Yeah, there's videos of him doing
so that would be awesome.
Yeah, Finnish brutality and stuff.
Yeah.
That guy is awesome. And he just seems fun.
Yeah.
Like someone I would want to sit down and have a beer with and talk about 8mm Lebel.
Yeah, I think that is, like, we talk about this very often, but one of the cool things about doing this podcast is that we do get to talk to people and we get to meet people. I mean, we're not like meeting in person. I mean, maybe one day, but I mean, for now, this
Never.
definitely. I think I talked about on our story today. It is a very selfish endeavor, and I think Mike kind of talked about it a little bit. Where if he's very passionate about something, then people will tune in and care. And I kind of feel the same way with this podcast. I'm able to meet and talk with anybody. I mean, anybody that I've wanted to so far, I'm able to. Except for one. There's one guy, and we reached out and asked him, and all he did was just give us a thumbs up. The Wooded Beardsman. He's a great. He's a Canadian. He does these survival videos in Canada. They're entertaining. They're like 3 hours long. Some are like 10 hours long even. And I will sit there and I will like watch and do something. I love him. I think he's super entertaining. I reached out and I was like, hey, you want to come on the podcast so I can talk to you? And he's like, what's your podcast? And I'm like, oh God. I'm like,
oh fuck.
I'm like, the Art War podcast. All he did, he sent me a thumbs up and I'm like, so can I chat? No. So we'll see. Maybe he'll get on.
Okay.
But that's my guy. If I had to pick my guy.
It's pretty sick. That's way more well thought out than mine.
Well, I have to think about these kids,
things
because we run a show that depends on meeting people. So
that's true. You said you're not going to SHOT Show,
me?
Isaac?
I really don't want to. I didn't go last year, and it was so good.
Betrayer.
Like,
I know.
I don't know if I can ever go back.
The best part
to
is
going
people.
to SHOT Show.
The best people.
Yeah.
Part is people. 100%.
I feel like we should organize just a people meeting event. I mean, the same thing was true when I was I think the same thing is true when we were doing like homeschool conferences and stuff. When I was a kid, it was like, why are we doing all these conferences where we got to sell product and like there's the vendors hall and there's speakers? Like, let's not do that. Let's do a conference where everyone just gets together and hangs out.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, we talked with the CEO of Weapons Outfitters and the CEO of Core Performance about this. They all agree. They're like, SHOT Show sucks. The best part is meeting the people there, and like let's just do an event where instead of it's all about like us and the companies and the product, let's just do a thing where we all like go and hang out. And
that would be wonderful.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I just want to see more anime art from Pageosity.
Oh, yeah.
She's great.
Paige is fantastic.
Great.
I'm looking forward to actually fucking hang out with her next month.
Delta Magna
or this
too.
month. Oh, fuck.
We
this
just
month.
discovered her. She's awesome. We had her on 2 days ago.
Delta Magna's really good.
She's awesome.
I don't know.
Super nice.
I'll have to check her out. What's her at?
Delta Magna.
Delta Magna.
Delta Magna.
If you look in our story, she's
really
the one that did the art for the Q&A today.
Oh, okay.
She's super nice, super friendly.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yep, she's making a video game, actually. Her and her boyfriend. They were inspired by Metal Gear Solid. And there's a whole story behind it, but super cool people.
Dude, these are people doing way cooler things than me.
Yeah, I say that all the time. There's so many cool people in the industry doing cool shit, and I'm just like, I have a podcast.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I think we do need in the industry is like SHOT Show. Actually, the reason that SHOT Show is so terrible is it's not really the NSSF's fault. It's the trade shows are terrible.
Yeah.
Vegas is terrible.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But I think that somebody like you guys or Mike, somebody who isn't necessarily a company, so you're unbiased, you're no man's land. you guys could start some kind of symposium or, just a get together that other companies could come to. And it's not on any one person's turf. And so it's cool. We could all show up.
What was that? What was that show that they had up in Seattle? They used to have it every year.
TriggerCon?
TriggerCon, yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
That was a really fun show.
I heard that's really good, yeah.
If you've ever gone to that one, it's pretty small. It's much more personable. It feels like a better SHOT Show. That was awesome, but I think it got canceled due to COVID because Seattle was very, 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 very liberal.
Was it?
So they're not down.
Yeah.
Was it Justin from Core Performance that said we should do it in Florida? I think he was saying.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he brought up all these good reasons. I don't remember.
I mean, I like everything except for Florida, so.
Florida's it's really fucking humid down there.
Yeah.
I was doing my dog handler course down in Florida in August. We were in kind of like the swamps in his backyard and just running through that and doing like scent work. Oh, it was so miserable. It was way too humid.
Yeah, it sounds awful. That sounds really bad.
Well, we're coming up on about 2.5 hours now.
Oh yeah, we've talked.
Yeah.
Oh, I just like talking. I like talking to Isaac.
Yeah, no, it's great.
The time disappeared. Yeah.
Well, one thing
I think we're going to have to do more of this. Yeah. This is a good crowd.
This is a good. This is a good recommendation for like a get together. But this is something we were actually talking about in a meeting earlier this week. Is just kind of what is it that we want to. What are our success metrics at Trex? Because there's the obvious ones. There's like make enough money that you keep the doors open. There's just basic economics.
Quad nods.
And then there's things like influence. Obviously we have a motto, which is inspire, educate, equip. But, make enough YouTube videos, sell enough product. You're like, check. But what would be really neat is if we could be a part of like that bigger movement. Like if there's a wave that's already breaking and we get to ride it, that's great. But if we could give the next wave a push. So figuring out ways where we can work with other companies, and it's not just like a product thing. Like, we help somebody make a pistol light so that we can make a holster for it, but like something deeper than that, something bigger than that, something that's a little more movementy and a little less businessy. Yeah, that would be something that would be really, really cool. I don't know how to define it, and it's Trex probably can't spearhead it, but we would definitely want to make it as cool as possible.
Interesting.
As non-weird as possible.
I think you're already helping a lot.
I just thought of a really weird concept. Not weird. I think the best thing that you guys could bring to because you said you don't necessarily want to spearhead it. I don't think you necessarily have to. I think with all the influence and kind of audience that everybody kind of has here, I think if there was a way to kind of host like hey, we're gonna do like a week or 2-week long event where we focus on, survival skills, or we focus on these certain areas that aren't really always looked at, and we're going to be there. I think just your presence and the production value that you guys can bring, I think that's where a lot of value is going to come, because people are just going to come just to want to hang out. And it's kind of like what we did with our characters for a while to build our audience. Mm-hmm. We did these characters that had no educational value whatsoever, but we know people want to be entertained as well. So we do the characters, we draw people in, and then we also put in guides, and then we also do this stuff. And I think very similarly, your presence and simply being there attracts people. And then it's like, oh, we're here, and the Trex Arms guys and Garand Thumb are here. Cool. Oh, now we're learning about whatever it is that we're doing. And I think, I don't know, that's just me thinking.
I like it.
No, I think
that's a good idea.
I mean, a good example of this, I just realized, is like Finnish brutality and desert brutality. Like those are not run by InRange or Ian or Veristrelica, but they get eyeballs because of those guys. Because they're publicizing and part of those events, everyone else wants to come and do it too because it looks fun.
That's a good point. Finnish brutality. What a great match.
It looked unpleasant. It looked cold.
I want to do that. It looks miserable and wonderful. I want to try it.
I'm gonna get you out there.
I am the oldest guy on this podcast.
How old are you, Isaac?
I'm 40.
How old are
I'm
you?
40 years old.
You're not old, Isaac.
I'm feeling the age. No, I shouldn't say that because some of you guys have more injuries than I do, and so
Isaac,
I shouldn't complain too much.
Isn't your cardiovascular peak at like 39 or 42, somewhere right around there?
Oh, it probably is if you exercise. Yeah.
Damn, fair enough.
No, I need to get. I need to be doing more stuff. But so what's going to happen is, as my kids get older, there's a whole bunch of things that I used to do that I've kind of stopped doing because I don't have time because of kids. But I get to start doing again as soon as kids are older.
Yeah.
So like I kind of stopped gaming, but now I'm doing a little bit of computer games with James. And as the kids get older, like I've also basically stopped hunting. I haven't been hunting since I've been married. But James is old enough to go hunting pretty soon.
Ooh.
And so all of this stuff that I've kind of gotten lax and sloppy about, like camping with little children is not fun, but camping with slightly older children is a blast. And so we're going to start camping again pretty soon. So we're going to start doing all of this stuff that I have been lazy about.
Well, he's going to learn how to chop some wood. I'll tell you that much.
Rebuild civilization with an
he's
axe.
going to build a civilization with an axe. Yeah.
That's how you do it.
Well, it's actually, I love going to Jordan's house, and the kids love it. And they're learning how to do stuff out there. So that's really cool. But yeah, I'm hoping to get back into some of this stuff. But when I do certain things, I do feel like, man, I'm getting old. You know, all of the stuff that sounded super fun and was super fun when I was younger sounds less fun. Like if North Korea invades and I have to do guerrilla warfare stuff, I'm going to be so grumpy about it.
Make sure we say gorilla. Like
yeah.
I'm going to get you out here. This is really important to me now. I want to get Lucas. I know Lucas is so busy right now, though, but I want to get him out for the mountain course as well. You know, that's something that me and Lucas have talked about for a long time. Maybe we'll do. Maybe we'll do it at some point in the future. Yeah. You never know. You never know.
But if you make me sleep in a cave,
that's a good idea.
I don't know.
It's gonna happen, Isaac. I'm just letting you know that right now.
During that night walk, I saw the Trex arms folks do. They were, you know, what was his mandatory? It was like mandatory water or something like that. And then he was like, "I have rain."
Yeah, that was It was like, I don't. Garand Thumb would not approve.
Garand Thumb would not approve of rain energy drink. You're certainly going to get that heart rate up.
Yeah, dehydrate a little bit quicker too.
A little bit of dehydration, a little spicy.
We need to do more of that stuff around here for sure. But we should, we should organize more stuff out your way. Except for the fact that I don't like traveling either. Man, I sound like such a grumpy old man.
What if we just flew out?
What if we stuff? But I won't get on an airplane.
What if we flew to you? Just did private plane.
Oh, that's, there's an airport right next to the Trex shop. Little community airport.
That's easy. We might just do that.
14,000-foot runway. Like,
cool.
Yeah.
It was get a PC-12 and just come land and fly out to Washington.
Kidnap them.
Man, that's garbage. Just Halo jump in. Fuck it at that point.
Dude, I wish I could jump right now. I gotta fix this neck, man. I'm dying.
I keep wanting to try getting into jumping, and every time
Isaac,
I think about it, I'm talking to guys who are like, "Oh yeah," and I broke this and I broke that. And
okay. Everyone breaks it on static. All of my injuries are from static line, like civilian free fall. Super safe, super soft landings. You're gonna be fine. We're doing it. We're doing it, Isaac. I'm just letting you know. Like we're gonna do like a full Bear Grylls. We're gonna parachute into the woods. And we're gonna build a small replica of Paris or something like that. I don't know.
Nice. Well, let's see. Could you incorporate any diving? Because my scuba cert is not getting used a lot here in Tennessee.
When was the last time you dived?
That's a good question. It's probably 4 or 5 years ago. No, 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah.
I think I brought this up before, but there's this really cool event you can do, or it's in Belize, and it's the Eye. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
So you can actually, what you can do is you can skydive from 15,000 feet into the Eye. And then there'll be a boat there. So once you land, you shed your skydiving equipment, you put on your diving equipment, then you dive down to the bottom. So it's supposed to be really cool because it's like you go from this highest elevation without O2 to this really low elevation diving. So it's supposed to be kind of this cool experience. And that would be pretty fun to do.
Aren't you not supposed to do that? Like, isn't there...
You're not supposed to go the other way.
Oh, the other way. Oh, okay. I was going to say, that sounds familiar.
No, there's something about altitude and oxygen pressure that you're not supposed to fuck with, but I think you're okay here.
You're fine.
Someone's probably gonna hop in and say you can't do that, but a couple of my buddies were planning on doing it, so I'm not sure if it's actually safe or not. But
we'll find out.
We'll
find out.
Safe.
It's just nitrogen,
It's just
Yeah.
nitrogen, whatever.
There's a
Who
lot of
cares?
nitrogen in the air. It didn't hurt me yet. I'm sure I'm fine.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that's I made. I haven't been. There's a whole bunch of stuff I used to do that I need to get back to, but Tennessee is a landlocked state, and I don't really like cave or quarry diving that much. So I've gotten out of that practice too.
Ditto.
Yeah. I've seen The Descent. Cave diving's not for me.
I did it once, and I was like, I'm so glad I did that, and that I will never do it again.
That seems extremely claustrophobic.
Oh, I don't like it. I don't like it at all, Chief.
Gosh.
Yeah. Well, I should probably head home and take care of kids. Oh, by the way, I have a Garand thumb story that I think nobody has probably heard before.
I think that this is important enough that you should not go home and see your kids. It is more important than all
this is a good story, potentially to close on. I don't know how late you guys want to talk without me.
I love it.
Let's close it.
Do you remember, Mike, when you were out at the T-Rex range one time, and I brought a small child with me? Do you dimly remember this? This is a while back. So James
is from my memory.
Is like 5.5 now.
I do remember it. I do.
I think he was almost 3. But anyway, we're out on the range. He's wearing hearing protection, and he's watching us shoot. He's mostly watching you shoot, and all the other people that are out there. And then we break for lunch. And during lunch, some of the guys go 50, 100 yards away and start shooting with pistols, which is totally safe. It's fine. But he doesn't really like it. Like it's too loud. He's not wearing his ear pro, and it's not pleasant. So he runs over to who he thinks is me and grabs a hold of what he thinks are my legs, and it's of course Garand thumb. And you just take off your ear pro and just lean down and put it on him, and he's like watching them shoot. Now he's happy because he's got the ear pro on. He's hanging real tight onto your legs, and then he looks up at you and he's like, "Oh." And then runs off because it's not me. But it was like, I just watched a meme happen. Like even my own son thinks that Garand thumb is daddy. Yeah.
By the way, those were off-score amps that he took, so I'm going to need you to pay for those. I do remember that. That's those are little things you forget. That's awesome.
It was a super touching moment.
That's very
but it was
sweet.
also a hilarious internet meme played out in real life.
That is a meme right there.
That's super cute.
That's wholesome.
That's cute. Very wholesome.
So now, next time
he
he come out to the range, hopefully he will have his 22 pistol kitted out with a suppressor
and those ops core amps,
proper red dot. And,
I can't wait to see it.
Protection's taken care of.
Yeah, you love to see it.
Yep. So it's really really appreciated talking to you guys. It's really fun to have some of these conversations, and it's like I said, this is proof that we could have like an industry event, a hangout time.
That's a good point.
And
I agree.
That would be
it's like the personalities mesh well, and I think that's something we should put more effort into.
I mean, we'll start pushing on it.
Yeah, because it's so easy that to misconstrue, with the internet barrier, it's so easy to get annoyed with people, jump to the wrong conclusions, and then everyone else loves the drama, so it of course spirals out of control.
Oh yeah.
But when people hang out in person, it's completely different.
Yeah, it's very different.
It's a really good point.
This is sort of close.
Nuance.
It's kind of
close. It's as close as we can get right now.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll have to do this more. This is good. Like our first recurring guests,
again,
but like,
Isaac.
At some point, I'm going to.
Congratulations on your new podcast, Mike. I applaud you.
Yeah, you have no choice, Isaac.
The third host.
Oh my God!
I do have to get
This is the third host. Fucking
Lucas,
Mike Jones.
when he reached out and talked about the Isaac episode, I think we were kind of like tiptoeing around the idea of having him on. I got to ask him at one point, but one question I've really wanted to ask Lucas for a long time. What does he think a boxing match between him and Mike would look like? Because that guy, I remember that was a huge thing. I don't remember what you did. I don't remember what you did or what he did, but people thought that you two were going to fight and you had to do a whole live stream just to kind of like.
I remember that. Yep. That was hilarious. Yep. I love that drama.
So I got to ask him about that, but that's for his podcast, and then we'll see what happens from there.
Yeah.
Well, it was a real pleasure having both of you on.
Thank you.
Yeah,
no,
that's
it's a lot of fun. And,
Absolutely wonderful.
yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
going to be our
thanks for
longest episode to
facilitating.
date, which is great. I mean, that means
You're not going to have to
conversation's
cut
good.
anything out except all that earlier stuff about Delta Force and Green Berets.
Yeah. And also maybe the stuff about, Stephen Paddock with no history of anything.
Yeah,
to
I
know
don't know if that was
motivation,
recorded, though.
smuggling 44
Yeah, I'm so glad that the
semi-automatic
FBI is on these
firearms,
cases,
some of which with bump
and
stocks
so
into his hotel
years after
room.
the fact, we can still know nothing about what happened.
Clinical.
So wonderful.
Yeah.
It's clinical.
We can still know nothing about what
I'd love to
happened. It's
see
a
it.
great thing that all the people around him are, died or are in prison. Sorry, continue.
Well, closing dad advice we're going to go with Isaac this time. Closing advice for the audience. Dad advice.
Oh, I guess. Oh, for dads, or as if I am
just if
the
you're
father passing it on.
you're a dad,
Oh.
you got dad advice.
Be cautiously optimistic about people. Don't jump to terrible conclusions just because it's easy. Don't even jump to terrible conclusions just because it looks like the tiny bit of evidence that you have might point that way. Be cautiously optimistic about people, and I think that's something we covered earlier. It's probably a good place to end on.
It's a good place to end on.
I love it.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Thank you so much.